Welcome to Bivena Audio. This channel is a home for audiobooks and spoken books across ideas, life, work, and reflection, shared calmly and without rush. In this recording, you are invited to listen slowly, without pressure to remember or perform. Simply allow the words to move at their own pace and take what stays with you. Let's begin.
Welcome to Chapter 1 of Emotional Declutter, a practical guide to letting go of what weighs you down. In this chapter, we'll explore Chapter 1, Understanding Emotional Clutter. Introduction. Emotional clutter is the invisible pileup that makes your thoughts feel crowded, your mood a little frayed, and your attention harder to hold. In this chapter, we'll explore what emotional clutter actually is, how it builds up over time, and why letting go matters for everyday clarity and calm. The goal here is practical, to help you notice the pieces you carry so you can decide what to keep, what to sort, and what to release. What emotional clutter is, start with a simple image, a room with things layered on every surface. You can still move through it, but every step requires effort. Emotional clutter works the same way in the mind. It's made of small, often unfinished emotional moments. Sharp words, tiny disappointments, half-said apologies, worries that weren't resolved. These elements don't always need therapy or deep analysis. Most often, they need to be noticed and given a simple, direct response so they don't keep showing up. Emotional clutter shows up as tension you can't place, memories that pop up for no reason, or a general feeling of being weighed down. You might catch yourself snapping at someone for no clear reason, feeling tired without being physically exhausted, or having persistent low-level anxiety. When these reactions repeat, they're often the mind's way of signaling that something was left unresolved. How emotional weight forms. Emotional weight usually grows slowly. It often starts with small things: an interrupted conversation, a forgotten commitment, an offhand remark that you didn't answer, or a repeated worry you didn't address. Over time, these moments layer and stick together. Because each one seems minor, it's easy to ignore them. That's how they collect, like leaves gathering in a corner until they form a pile you can't step over without making a fuss. 3 common ways emotional weight forms. Avoidance. You push aside feelings so you can carry on. Avoidance works short-term, but the feelings stay. They don't disappear, they wait. Unfinished business. Conversations left hanging, apologies unsaid, or decisions postponed create a sense of loose ends that pull at attention. Habitual reactivity. Repeating the same thoughts or responses to similar situations strengthens emotional grooves. Each repetition deepens the track, so the reaction becomes automatic. When these patterns continue, they shape how you perceive new moments. Small, unresolved tensions tint your responses and reduce mental space for new ideas. Why release is important. Letting go isn't about erasing your history or pretending nothing happened. It's about freeing your present self from old weights. When you carry less clutter, you can think more clearly, respond more intentionally, and conserve energy for things that matter. Release helps in 3 practical ways. Clarity. Fewer unresolved emotions mean fewer distractions. That clarity helps with decisions and focus. Energy. Emotional weight consumes energy. Releasing what you don't need leaves more capacity for positive action, creativity, and rest. Relationship quality. When you're not carrying old grievances or passive tensions, interactions become more genuine and less reactive. Releasing also reduces the risk that old emotions will color new experiences. For example, if you hold on to a past slight, you're more likely to interpret neutral remarks as personal attacks. Letting go helps you see things more accurately, rather than through a fog of resentment or fear. Simple shifts that start the process. You don't need a major breakthrough to begin. Small changes create space, naming what you feel, taking brief moments to reflect, and allowing emotions to pass. These simple acts interrupt the accumulation process. They don't require expert skills, only the willingness to notice and respond with small, clear actions. Over the rest of the book, you'll find practical tools and short habits that fit into everyday life. This chapter gives you the map. Emotional clutter is normal. It builds when things go unattended, and letting go is about gaining clarity and energy for the present. The rest of the book shows how to do that step by step. Practice for this chapter. For 2 days, keep a simple note somewhere, on your phone or a sticky note, where you quickly jot any lingering emotion that shows up. Don't analyze it, just name it: annoyed, sad, guilty, uneasy. That small habit begins the shift from carrying to noticing. 1. What emotional clutter is. Emotional clutter is the invisible pile that makes thinking harder. This section explains what it looks like and how faint, unfinished feelings can still change how you act. It's made of small, unfinished moments. Missed words, tiny slights, and repeated worries feel minor on their own, but add up over time. Think of emotional clutter as a stack of tiny, unresolved moments that quietly collect. A missed reply, an offhand remark, or a worry you push aside each feels small. Alone, they barely register. Together, they take up mental space and shape your mood. Because each incident seems minor, we skip responding fully. No apology is made, no boundary is set, no thought is spoken aloud. Over days and months, these small items stick, creating a heavier background feeling you might not notice until it affects your sleep or patience. The good news: because the pieces are small, the fixes can be simple. A quick conversation, a brief sentence of truth, or acknowledging the feeling often dissolves the weight. Practicing small responses regularly prevents the pileup and makes it easier to choose what to address and what to let pass. It shows as unexplained tension, random memories, or low-level irritability. You might snap or feel off without a clear cause. Emotional clutter often announces itself with vague signals rather than dramatic moments. You might notice a low hum of tension in your chest, memories that surface at odd times, or a consistent edge under your patience. These sensations can feel disproportionate to the present situation, making them confusing. Because the cause isn't obvious, it's easy to misattribute the feeling to something immediate, a coworker's tone or a traffic jam, and react accordingly. That reaction then creates more clutter, like throwing a log on a smoldering fire. The helpful step is to pause and label what you feel, even if it's only tense or off. Naming reduces the fog and gives you a simple action: breathe, step back, or jot a note. Small pauses interrupt the automatic pattern and stop the unconscious buildup. Over time, you spot the early tremor before it grows, and that awareness keeps your mind clearer and responses calmer. Often, it runs below awareness. You sense something is wrong but can't name it. That hazy background drains attention. A defining feature of emotional clutter is its subtlety. Instead of a single event you can point to, it lives as a quiet background hum. You might feel mentally foggy, distracted, or vaguely uneasy without being able to say why. Because it sits beneath awareness, usual fixes like a good night's sleep or a break don't always do the trick. The mind keeps tugging at loose ends it can't see. That low-level drain reduces focus, slows thinking, and undermines motivation in small but steady ways. The remedy begins with awareness. Simple practices, jotting a single word, taking a brief breath, or asking, "What am I feeling?" bring the hazy surface into view. Once named, the feeling is easier to manage and makes room for clearer attention. Slowly, that persistent fog lifts and you regain a steadier, more present mind. Most of it doesn't need deep analysis. Simple noticing and brief, direct responses stop these feelings from staying stuck. A helpful truth about emotional clutter is that it rarely requires long therapy sessions or intense self-examination to shift. Many leftover feelings respond to straightforward small actions. Noticing, naming, and taking a brief, clear step often deflates the charge. Examples are easy: saying, "I felt hurt by that," in a calm tone, writing a one-sentence note to yourself, or stepping away to breathe for a minute. Each of these is short but purposeful, and each interrupts the pattern of leaving things unresolved. The aim isn't perfection, it's to create small exits for emotions so they don't pile up. Over time, these micro-responses become habits that preserve clarity, reduce reactivity, and make everyday life feel lighter. Start small and be consistent. Short, steady actions beat occasional grand efforts. They prevent new clutter and keep your mind more available to the present daily. 1-2. How emotional weight forms. Emotional weight grows slowly. Here are common ways small moments become heavier and start to affect daily energy and choices. Avoiding feelings helps short-term. Putting things aside lets them sit and take up space in your mind instead of moving through. Avoiding feelings can feel practical in the moment. You push them aside to get through a meeting, a chore, or a tense interaction. Short-term avoidance reduces immediate discomfort and often seems like the quickest option. But when you tuck feelings away, they don't disappear. They linger. The mind stores those unfinished sensations and later brings them up as unexplained tension, irritability, or sudden low mood. Because the emotion wasn't acknowledged, it never has the chance to move through you. A small habit helps. Notice the impulse to ignore something and name it silently. I'm feeling annoyed. Then allow a minute to breathe. That tiny acknowledgement interrupts accumulation and prevents postponed feelings from becoming heavy. It doesn't have to be perfect. Short actions add up. This practice builds resilience and makes it easier to face bigger emotions when they come. Unfinished business creates loose ends. Conversations left open, apologies unsaid, and delayed decisions keep resurfacing and tugging at attention. Unfinished business, interrupted conversations, unsent apologies, or postponed decisions creates a pull in your mind. When a matter remains incomplete, your attention keeps returning to it, trying to find closure. Those mental returns can feel minor, a memory that pops up during a walk or a repeated thought on the commute, but they steadily drain mental bandwidth. The brain treats unresolved social and practical issues like problems needing a solution. So until closure occurs, it won't stop searching. Practical steps help. Choose one small closure action you can do within 5 minutes. Send a clarifying message, jot a short note, or schedule a time to follow up. Tiny closures signal to your brain that the matter is being handled. Over time, regularly wrapping up small loose ends prevents them from accumulating into a heavier load and improves focus and calm. Repeating the same thoughts or reactions deepens the habit. Every replay makes the feeling easier to reach and harder to release. When you replay the same thought or reaction, you strengthen the mental pathway that makes it easier to access later. Each replay adds familiarity, turning a once sharp response into an automatic habit. This happens with rumination, replaying a comment from a week ago, or with practiced reactions like irritation at lateness. The brain favors familiar responses, so repetition actually entrenches the emotion and makes it quicker to surface next time. Break the loop with small interruptions. Notice when a loop starts and switch to a brief grounding action. Name the thought, take 3 slow breaths, change your posture, or step away for a moment. Over time, these tiny interruptions weaken the automatic response and create new, calmer patterns. Be gentle with yourself. Replacing habits takes repetition too. Celebrate small gaps between old reactions and new choices. Those gaps are the beginning of more mental space and fewer automatic pulls toward the same heavy feelings. Small stresses stack over time. A few unaddressed moments each day build into a heavier load. After weeks and months, small stresses accumulate. Minor inconveniences, micro-annoyances, and unresolved little demands create a gradual load. Individually, they're manageable. Together, they shift your baseline mood and reduce resilience. Examples: waiting in a long line, curt emails, a cluttered inbox, missed sleep, or one more favor asked. Each is small, but repeated daily, they erode patience and focus. Over weeks, these small hits lower energy reserves and make irritability more likely. Interrupt the stacking with micro resets. Short walks, 2-minute breath breaks, deleting or delegating small tasks, or writing a quick note to offload a worry. These tiny actions peel away thin layers so weight doesn't solidify into something heavier. Notice trends weekly. If small frustrations are growing, pick one habitual source to adjust. Scheduling simple resets, even 2 minutes several times a day, adds up and protects your patience, sleep, and decision-making, keeping the emotional load lighter over time. 1.3. Why release is important. Letting go changes how you use time and energy. This section covers practical benefits of clearing what no longer serves you. Clarity improves. With fewer unresolved feelings, you get mental space. Decisions become easier, and you notice more options. When you carry fewer unresolved feelings, your mind gets room to think. Emotional clutter takes up attention in subtle ways, a background hum of annoyance, guilt, or worry that nudges decision-making. Clearing those small weights creates mental space where you can weigh options more clearly. With this space, choices feel less urgent and more considered. You notice alternatives that used to be hidden by noise. Instead of reacting from a tightened place, you can pause, evaluate pros and cons, and pick actions aligned with your goals. Try tiny habits. Name the feeling for 30 seconds, jot one sentence about it, or take a breath before deciding. These small acts don't solve everything, but they stop emotions from hijacking clarity. Over time, clearer thinking becomes your baseline. The result shows up across life. Sharper focus at work, less second-guessing in relationships, and a calmer inner voice that trusts itself. Clarity isn't about having no feelings. It's about making room for them so they inform rather than obscure your choices. Energy returns. Emotional weight drains stamina. Releasing what you don't need frees energy for rest, creativity, and action. Emotional weight uses energy in quiet ways. When feelings are unresolved, they loop in the background, draining stamina even if you're not consciously thinking about them. Letting go reduces that hidden consumption so you have more physical and mental resources. That recovered energy shows up as better sleep, more interest in hobbies, and steadier concentration. Instead of spending willpower on managing internal tension, you can invest it in rest, creativity, or tasks that move you forward. Simple practices help reclaim energy. Set small boundaries, take brief reflection breaks, or release one minor grievance each day by naming it and deciding whether it still matters. These micro-actions stop small drains from becoming chronic. Over weeks, the accumulated benefit is noticeable. Tasks feel less heavy, leisure feels more restorative, and you have more focus for meaningful projects. Energy isn't infinite, but clearing emotional clutter makes what you have go further. Relationships improve. Without old grievances, you respond more genuinely, and conversations become clearer instead of defensive. Old grievances and passive tensions act like smoky lenses between you and others. When you carry them, conversations tilt toward defense, misunderstanding, or overly cautious replies. Releasing small weights clears the view and lets interactions feel more genuine. Without the baggage, you can listen without searching for hidden slights, respond without reactivity, and be present with empathy. People notice when you're calmer, conversations become more open, and misunderstandings get resolved sooner. Practical steps include saying a simple, honest line when something nags you, offering short apologies, or asking clarifying questions instead of assuming. These actions don't require sweeping change. They interrupt the pattern that turns small tensions into long-standing distance. As defensive habits loosen, trust grows. You conserve energy that would otherwise be spent on managing perceived threats, and instead use it to deepen connections. In short, letting go doesn't weaken relationships. It often makes them truer and kinder. You see situations more accurately. Old emotions can bias your view. Letting go reduces that filter so new moments feel truer. Past emotions act like color filters on new experiences. If you carry fear, anger, or hurt from earlier events, you may interpret neutral actions as hostile or overlook positive signals. Letting go removes that tint and improves perception. With fewer filters, you notice details you would have missed: tone, context, and alternative explanations. This clearer view helps you make decisions based on present facts rather than echoes from the past. Try a quick reality check. Ask yourself, is this about now or something earlier? Or list evidence for and against your immediate interpretation. These small habits break the automatic jump from feeling to story and give you pause to see what's real. Seeing situations more accurately often reduces unnecessary conflict and keeps you open to learning. It doesn't mean you won't feel. It means your emotions won't rewrite reality. That accuracy brings calm, better choices, and fewer regrets. Thank you for listening to Chapter 1. We'll see you in Chapter 2. Chapter 2. Chapter 2. Recognizing what you carry. Let's dive into this important topic. Introduction. Recognition is the first active step in emotional decluttering. You can't sort what you don't see. This chapter focuses on simple, practical ways to spot the feelings that stick around and to find the moments that show where they're stored. Learning to identify triggers and patterns gives you a clear starting point for small, consistent releases. Spotting emotional residue. Emotional residue is the part of an experience that lingers beyond the event itself. It's the leftover feeling that shouldn't still be influencing your day. Examples include waking up with a tight chest after an unresolved conversation the night before, tasting bitterness when you encounter someone who reminds you of an old argument, or feeling small spikes of anger when you see a certain message or image. To spot residue, use curiosity, not judgment. Ask yourself simple questions when a reaction comes up. What just happened? Did this moment actually require that much reaction? Is this tied to something that happened earlier? By pausing and asking these modest questions, you catch the residue as it arises instead of letting it simmer unnoticed. Try a short exercise. When you notice tension, name the feeling and estimate how long it has been present. Sometimes you'll find it maps back to a specific day or conversation. Other times it's vaguer, a slow background hum of worry. Either way, naming gives you power. It changes a vague, heavy feeling into something you can look at and decide how to handle. Identifying triggers. Triggers are clues that point to where emotions are stored. They're not always dramatic. Often they are tiny, everyday reminders. A tone of voice, a phrase, a place, or a time of day. Triggers can also be internal. Tiredness, hunger, or a certain thought pattern that reliably leads to low mood. To identify triggers, keep a short list for a week. Note each moment you have an unexpectedly strong reaction and what happened just before. Over time, a pattern will appear. Maybe it's social situations that leave you drained, or certain people who always bring on defensiveness. When you know the triggers, you can choose to prepare differently or to give those moments extra attention so feelings don't pile up. Important point: a trigger is not the whole story. It is a signal. When a trigger shows up, it's a chance to ask, what is this reminding me of? Or, does this need to be handled now or later? Patterns of emotional buildup. Emotional clutter rarely builds in one blow. It grows in patterns, repeated reactions, chronic avoidance, and ongoing overthinking. Here are some patterns to watch for. Repeated reactions. You find yourself responding the same way in similar situations: defensive, shut down, or anxious. That repetition deepens the emotion's hold. Avoidance. You delay difficult conversations or decisions, and the delay converts each instance into extra weight. Ruminating thoughts. Thoughts that loop without resolution keep emotional energy tied to past events. When you detect these patterns, focus on small interrupts: a pause before you answer, a short note to yourself after a triggering event, or a quick breath to break a habitual loop. Small interrupts don't fix everything, but they stop reinforcement. That's how patterns loosen their grip over time. Practical tracking tools. Tracking doesn't have to be elaborate. Use a simple format you'll keep up with: date, trigger, feeling word, and a one-line note on how you responded. Do this for a week and review. You'll see which emotions show up most and under what conditions. That review gives you actionable targets, clear places to practice letting go. Another useful approach is to notice the body. Emotions live in sensation. Tight shoulders, a knot in the stomach, a shallow breath, these are reliable signs. When you pair physical noticing with naming, the emotion becomes manageable. You shift from being swept away to being an observer who can act, bringing it. Together, recognition is a gentle process. You don't have to resolve everything at once. The point is to bring what's below the surface into view. Once you recognize what you carry through residue, triggers, and patterns, you're ready for the next set of tools, simple ways to process emotions so they stop piling up. Practice for this chapter. For 1 week, add a brief line to your day, one feeling word, and one trigger. At the end of the week, read the lines and circle the most common feeling. That's your first target for small processing exercises in the next chapter. 2.1 Spotting Emotional Residue. Recognition starts with small moments. Emotional residue is the leftover feeling that keeps showing up after an event is over. This intro helps you notice those tiny echoes: tightness, a flash of irritation, or a nagging thought, so you can name and address them instead of carrying them around. Name the sensation when you feel a sudden shift: tight shoulders, a hollow stomach, or an edge of anger. Pause and give it a word. Saying guilt, annoyance, or sad out loud or in your head turns a vague heaviness into something you can look at. Naming reduces confusion and lowers intensity because the brain moves from a muddled sensation to a defined experience. You don't need perfect labels. Simple words work. If sensations are mixed, Name the dominant tone first, then add another if needed. Try pairing the name with a short physical note, for example, tightness, shoulders, to link body and language. That connection makes the feeling easier to release and gives you direction for a small response, like a breath or a brief walk. Practice choosing 3 feeling words to keep handy for a week. When you notice a shift, say one aloud and breathe. That tiny interruption creates space and prevents residues from building. Ask simple catch-up questions. When a reaction surfaces, treat it like a short check-in. Ask quick, non-judgmental questions. What happened just now? Did this moment really deserve that feeling? Is this reaction tied to something earlier? These prompts slow the automatic cascade that makes residues stick. Use curiosity, not criticism, because judging yourself magnifies the agitation. Keep the questions short and gentle. You might say aloud, "What is this about?" Or think, "Is this mine to carry?" The goal is awareness, not immediate solution. Often the answers are simple. The moment was small, or it echoes an old conversation. If a question reveals a specific, unresolved issue, note it for later rather than trying to fix it in the moment. A brief timestamp note, 2 words and a date, keeps you from ruminating and creates a clear next step. Trace the timeline. When you detect a lingering feeling, try mapping it to a timeline. Ask whether it started minutes ago, hours earlier, or days or weeks back. This simple habit reveals whether the emotion belongs to the present moment or is left over from a past event. You don't need exact dates. A rough estimate is enough to guide your response. Start by naming when you first noticed the feeling and any memory that appears alongside it. If you can connect it to a specific conversation or day, you can decide whether the issue needs action or can be let go. If the source is vague, label it as background worry and treat it with small management steps: breath, a quick note, or a brief walk. Creating a short timeline in your mind or on paper helps you avoid confusing current triggers with old ones and stops residues from consolidating. Use one-sentence microjournaling. Microjournaling is a tiny, practical habit, one sentence when residue appears. Write a feeling word and a brief note of what happened: frustrated, left on read, and the date or time. This minimal entry takes 30 seconds but creates an external record so emotions don't recycle inside your head. Consistency matters more than length. Over a week, these one-line notes reveal patterns you wouldn't see otherwise. Who or what consistently triggers you? Times of day that sap energy, or recurring themes. You can keep entries in a small notebook, a notes app, or a dedicated tracker. The format stays the same. Feeling plus trigger, one short action for later. For example, acknowledge with a call. Writing a sentence signals to your brain that the issue is noted and will be addressed if needed, which often lets the feeling pass. Try setting a reminder to jot one line when you notice tension. Small investment, big clarity over time. 2.2 Identifying triggers. Triggers are the signals that point to stored emotion. They can be external, a tone, a place, or internal, tiredness, or a thought loop. This section helps you spot those signals so you can respond with intention instead of reactivating old feelings. Notice the ordinary cues. Triggers often hide in plain sight: a phrase someone uses, a familiar route home, or a particular time of day that shifts your mood. These ordinary cues are small but consistent. Noticing them gives you early warning before feelings escalate. Stay curious when your mood changes for no clear reason. Pause and ask what just happened. Was it a sound, a word, a place? Marking these moments in a journal or on your phone creates a simple map of what reliably affects you. Once you can predict a cue, you can prepare. Maybe you plan a calming ritual before that commute, or you rehearse a short response to a loaded phrase. Preparation doesn't erase feeling, but it reduces surprise and the chance that an ordinary cue will pile onto other emotions. Treat noticing as practice, not judgment. The goal is not to blame yourself for reacting, but to collect information so you can choose a response. Over time, these small observations free up mental space and make bigger releases easier. Keep a short trigger list. For 1 week, note each surprise reaction and what came just before it. Keep entries simple: time, what happened, and the feeling word. Short entries are easier to keep up with, so you'll actually do them. At day's end or in the moment, jot one line. Over a week, you'll see repeats: same people, places, or situations. Those repeats point to targets for small interventions like a breath, brief boundary, or a quick note to yourself. Review your list quietly. Look for clusters and patterns. Which entries provoke the strongest physical reaction? Which repeat most often? Those are the places where a little practice will have the biggest effect. Treat the list as data, not drama. A short trigger list removes guesswork and gives you clear, actionable starting points for emotional decluttering without getting overwhelmed by analysis. Over time, this simple habit becomes a quick check that prevents small irritations from accumulating into heavier emotional clutter. Separate trigger from story. A trigger is a reminder, not the whole reason for your feeling. When a reaction surfaces, try to split the immediate cue from the narrative you attach to it. That split gives you choice. Ask quick questions. What exactly did I notice? What memory or fear is being nudged? Is this happening now, or am I reliving something from the past? These simple distinctions reduce automatic escalation. You don't need long therapy sessions to do this. Short pauses work. Saying silently, "This reminds me of," or "This is different from then," is often enough to shift perspective and calm the body. For example, if a curt email makes your chest tighten, note the physical cue, and then ask whether this is about the email or an earlier critique that still stings. That small distinction often stops the story loop before it starts. Watch internal states. Sometimes triggers aren't external at all. Hunger, fatigue, stress, and low blood sugar shape how easily we react. Noticing these internal states helps you treat the root cause rather than blaming the moment. Build a short habit. Before you respond, pause and check in with your body. Are you tired, thirsty, hungry, or overstimulated? Naming a need often reduces the emotional charge immediately. Small practical steps can change how triggers land. Grab water, take 5 minutes of rest, eat a snack, or step outside for a breath. These are not avoidance. They are basic care that prevents small states from escalating into big emotional clutter. Keep an internal note in your trigger list. Next to each entry, add whether an internal state was present. Over weeks, you may discover that many strong reactions happen on low-energy days, giving you a clear strategy to prevent buildup. 2.3. Patterns of emotional buildup. Emotional clutter usually grows in habits. Repeating the same reactions, avoiding things, or getting stuck in thought loops are the main patterns. Spotting these patterns gives you clear places to interrupt the buildup before it becomes heavy. Repeated reactions. When you respond the same way in similar situations, shutting down, snapping back, or people-pleasing, you reinforce the underlying emotion. Each repeated response is a small groove your brain follows, making the feeling easier to access next time. Noticing repetition is the first step. Pay attention to how often a reaction shows up and in what context. Try one small change to interrupt the pattern. Pause for a breath before replying, count to 3, or give a short, calm answer instead of the habitual one. That tiny delay creates space to choose rather than automatically react. Over days and weeks, those small pauses weaken the old grooves. The benefit is practical: fewer reactive moments, clearer conversations, and less emotional buildup. You don't need a dramatic overhaul. Consistency with small shifts is enough. Track one repeated reaction for a week and practice the pause. When repetition loosens, the emotion tied to it will also lose its automatic power. Avoidance adds weight. Putting off a conversation, decision, or task doesn't make the feeling disappear. It stacks on top of what's already there. Each delay adds a little more tension until a small annoyance becomes a persistent burden. Avoidance often feels safer short-term, but increases the emotional cost over time. Pick one postponed item and break it into a tiny, time-limited step. Write one sentence, send one message, or schedule a 5-minute check-in. The aim is progress, not perfection. Completing a small step reduces the unseen weight and shows you the situation is manageable. Even brief actions change how you feel about the issue. They interrupt the habit of postponing and prevent the accumulation of extra pressure. Over time, choosing small, concrete moves builds confidence and stops avoidance from turning into chronic emotional clutter. Ruminating thought loops that replay the same scenarios keep emotions active long after the event ends. Ruminating turns memory into live trouble, replaying what went wrong or what might go wrong until your energy is drained. The more a thought loops, the bigger the emotional charge becomes. Interrupt the loop with a quick, concrete tactic. Write one solution-focused sentence, take a 5-minute walk, or label the thought as worry, and set a short time to revisit it later. Simple actions shift attention and give the mind permission to stop circling. Another effective move is to replace replay with curiosity. Ask what exactly you fear or what you'd do if you had no fear. That reframes the loop into problem solving instead of replay. Small interruptions don't erase every thought, but they stop feeding the emotion and let it settle more quickly. Micro interrupts are powerful, small interventions, like a slow breath, a one-line note, or stepping away for a minute, don't solve everything, but they stop patterns from being reinforced. Micro interrupts are tiny gestures that give your nervous system a different signal, breaking automatic sequences before they deepen. Use practical examples. Place a sticky note with breathe where you're likely to react. Write one sentence after a triggering event, or take a 30-second walk around the room. These actions are low effort yet effective because they're easy to repeat consistently. Over time, many micro interrupts add up. They reduce the frequency of automatic reactions, weaken habitual loops, and create space for calmer responses. The point isn't dramatic change in a single moment, but steady reduction of reinforcement so emotional clutter doesn't grow unchecked. 2.4 Practical Tracking Tools. Tracking turns noticing into action. You don't need a long system, just a simple, repeatable format that fits your life. This section offers easy tools for tracking residue, triggers, and patterns so you can choose focused places to practice letting go. Simple daily line: each day write one line, date, trigger, feeling word, and one brief note on how you responded. Keeping it to a single sentence makes tracking fast enough to do consistently, even on busy days. This tiny habit reveals patterns quickly. After a few days, you'll notice repeated triggers or recurring feeling words. That's your map for small practice. It removes the pressure to analyze and instead gives clear, actionable data. Try variations that fit your life. A note in your phone, a sticker checklist, or a line in a pocket notebook. The key is regularity, not perfection. Over a week, the simple daily line will make invisible emotional patterns visible and set the stage for letting go. Tip: keep the format consistent. Date, one-word feeling, trigger, response, so review is effortless. Consistency turns noticing into a habit you can build on. Start today. Body first check: start tracking from sensation rather than thought. Spend a moment each time you notice tension and name where it lives: chest, shoulders, stomach, jaw. Pinpointing the spot makes emotion less abstract and gives you a concrete place to start releasing it. Record the body location alongside your one-line daily entry: date, trigger, feeling word, and body spot. Over days, patterns emerge. Maybe your shoulders tighten in meetings or your stomach knots before calls. Those correlations point to simple, targeted actions like a shoulder roll or a grounding breath. Pairing sensation with a quick action builds trust in your ability to influence feelings. A single intentional breath into a tight area can shift intensity enough to avoid carrying it through the day. The body check is both a data point and a gentle release tool. Tip: be curious, not urgent. Note sensations without trying to change them immediately. Observing is the first step toward choosing the right release. Weekly review ritual. Set aside a short moment each week to scan your simple daily lines. This ritual doesn't need an hour. 10 to 15 minutes is enough to spot repeating triggers and feeling words. A weekly rhythm turns scattered notes into a clear map of what drains you. Use a quick process. Circle the most common feeling word, underline the most frequent trigger, and write one sentence about a pattern you notice. Then choose one small interrupt to try next week: an extra pause before replying, a short note to yourself after a tough moment, or a tiny self-care action. The point is to make the next week intentional. Seeing the pattern gives you a targeted practice that won't overwhelm. Pick only one pattern and one interrupt. Over time, those weekly choices compound into much lighter emotional load and clearer priorities. Tip: schedule the review like any appointment so it actually happens. Consistency is where insight becomes change. Make it doable. The best tracking tool is the one you'll use. Make your system tiny so it fits into real life: a sticker on a wall calendar, a line in a pocket notebook, or a quick note on your phone. Small steps beat perfect setups every time. Designed for moments you already have while waiting for coffee, during a commute, or before bed. If jotting a line feels like too much, try a sticker or an emoji to mark a feeling. The goal is consistent noticing, not accuracy or flair. Keep expectations low and reward consistency. A week of simple notes is enough to give you direction. When the task is tiny, resistance fades and you begin to notice patterns without adding stress to your day. Tip: pick one micro format and stick with it for a month. Habit forms through repetition, and small, steady tracking builds the foundation for meaningful emotional decluttering. That concludes Chapter 2. Join us in the next chapter as we continue our journey through emotional declutter, a practical guide to letting go of what weighs you down.
Before we continue, if you find this reading helpful, you're welcome to subscribe to Bivina Audio for more audiobooks and spoken books across ideas, life, work, and reflection. Now, let's continue.
Welcome to Chapter 3 of Emotional Declutter, a practical guide to letting go of what weighs you down. In this chapter, we'll explore Chapter 3, Simple Ways to Process Emotions. Introduction. Processing emotions doesn't have to be long or complex. Small, consistent habits move feelings through you instead of letting them stick. This chapter gives practical, easy-to-use methods, naming emotions, using brief reflection moments, and letting feelings pass. These tools work in everyday life and can be practiced in minutes. Naming emotions. Naming is one of the fastest ways to make an emotion less overwhelming. When you label a feeling, I'm angry, I'm hurt, or I feel worried, you shift from being controlled by the emotion to standing beside it. That shift reduces intensity because your brain no longer has to guess what's happening. Naming provides clarity and a place to start. Use specific words where possible. Instead of a general bad, try ashamed, disappointed, or annoyed. Specificity helps you see what needs to be addressed. If you're unsure which word fits, describe the sensation: tight chest, buzzing thoughts, or a sinking feeling. Even those simple descriptions provide useful information. Try a small practice. When a feeling rises, pause for one breath and say the name out loud or in your mind. That one act, simple and quick, often reduces the emotional volume enough to think clearly about a next step. Short reflection moments. Short reflection is a powerful, low-friction tool. You don't need a long journaling session. A minute or two is enough. The aim is to move emotion from the body into words, even if it's a single sentence. That movement helps the feeling progress rather than become fixed. Here are 3 short reflection formats you can use anywhere. 1 sentence write: I'm feeling X because of Y. Keep it to 1 sentence and then stop. The goal is movement, not analysis. 2 breath pause. Breathe in for 4 counts, out for 6, and on the exhale, name the feeling. Repeat once. This calms the nervous system and gives your mind space to notice. Quick check-in. Ask, where in my body is this? What might this be asking me to do? Answer with a short phrase and move on. These moments are not a substitute for deeper work when it's needed, but they break up the accumulation. If you practice them regularly, they reduce the number of feelings that last beyond the moment. Allowing feelings to pass. Emotions naturally rise and fall if they're given some space. Trying to squash them or argue with them often makes them louder. Allowing is not the same as accepting harmful behavior or inaction. It's a mindful way of noticing that a feeling exists and trusting it will change with time and attention. When an emotion shows up, try this sequence. Notice it. Name it. Breathe with it for a minute. Then imagine letting it move through your body like a wave. It helps to visualize the feeling as something temporary rather than permanent. With practice, this reduces panic and cut the time an emotion stays active. Practical tip: set a 60-second timer and give the emotion that minute only. Sit with it. If thoughts come, let them come and go. When the timer ends, make a small practical decision. Write a note, send a message, take a short walk, or simply continue with your day. Giving a bounded space to feel often reduces the need for ongoing rumination. Combining tools in daily life. The most useful change is repetition. Combining naming, brief reflection, and allowing makes for quick emotional hygiene. For example, after a tense meeting, take 30 seconds to name your feeling, write one sentence about why it matters, and breathe for 1 minute. That short routine prevents the meeting from staying with you all afternoon. These tools are also helpful at night. If a worry keeps you awake, write one sentence naming the worry and the likely next step, even if it is simply, "I will revisit this at 9 a.m." That small boundary lets your mind delay the problem instead of carrying it overnight. When to seek more support? Simple. Processing handles most everyday emotional clutter. If you notice that certain emotions keep returning more intense than before, or if they interfere with daily tasks, relationships, or sleep regularly, consider reaching out to a mental health professional. Asking for help is a practical step, like calling a mechanic when a car keeps making noise. It doesn't mean you've failed, it means you're taking care of what's important. Practice for this chapter. For a week, use a 1-minute routine each time you notice a lingering feeling. Name it, write one sentence, and take 1 minute of breathing. Track how often the feeling repeats the next day. You'll likely find the frequency reduces with consistent, short practices. 3. Naming emotions. Introduction. Giving a feeling a name is one of the fastest ways to make it feel manageable. That quick label moves the experience from a swirling, vague sense of discomfort into an identifiable thing you can work with. In just a breath or two, you can reduce intensity and open up options for what to do next. Label to reduce intensity, saying a feeling out loud or in your head. I am angry, I'm sad, I feel anxious, creates distance between you and the emotion. That distance helps your brain stop guessing and lowers the rush of energy that keeps the feeling active. Try it the moment you notice heightened emotion and watch how quickly the intensity softens. Even a quiet label gives your mind something specific to work with, interrupting the loop of reactive thought. Naming is not a magic fix, but it's a powerful first move. When feelings lose volume, you can choose a next step, breathe, write one line, or take a short break, rather than being swept away. Example, in a tense conversation, pause and say, silently or aloud, I notice frustration. That small phrase separates the feeling from the person you are with, letting you respond more clearly. Try it the next time a strong feeling appears. Choose specific words. General labels like bad or upset keep feelings vague. Choosing specific words, hurt, disappointed, irritated, or nervous, gives your mind clearer information about the experience. Specific language points toward what needs attention. If you identify annoyed, you might focus on boundaries. If it's ashamed, you might explore a different thought loop. The word you pick hints at the next practical step. When a single word is hard to find, describe the physical sensation, tight chest, racing heart, or a lump in the throat. Those details narrow the label and make it faster to choose what to do next. Tip: use I feel statements to avoid blaming others and to stay connected to your experience. Practice makes specificity easier. Over time, you build a mental vocabulary that speeds the naming process. Keep a short feelings list. Having a ready list of feeling words removes the stumbling that can happen when your mind is clouded. Keep about 8 to 12 terms on a note in your phone or a small card in your wallet. The list should mix broad categories and precise words. Calm, irritated, anxious, resentful, hopeful, lonely, embarrassed, relieved. Scanning this list when you feel stuck helps you pick faster and reduces rumination. You can update the list as you learn new distinctions. Over weeks, you'll notice which words show up most and which ones hint at deeper patterns needing attention. Carrying a short list is also useful in social moments. When someone's remarks trigger an emotion, glance at the list, choose a word, and use it as the start of a one-breath pause before reacting. This small tool is a lightweight emotional hygiene practice that keeps reactions cleaner and less sticky. Make naming a tiny habit. Tiny habits stick. Make naming emotions a short, repeatable routine. Pause one breath, say the word, and choose one simple next action like breathe or write one sentence. The goal is consistency, not perfection. Doing this once or twice a day builds the neural pathway that makes identifying emotions faster and less draining. Use triggers to anchor the habit. After brushing your teeth, finishing a call, or before meals, take a quick emotional label. Anchors turn a new practice into something automatic. Be kind with misses. If you forget, notice that you forgot and try again. Small repetitions compound. Over time, the naming step becomes a natural pause that prevents feelings from accumulating. Track progress casually. A tick mark on your phone or a comment in a daily note shows you're practicing. Seeing progress encourages continuation more than aiming for flawless execution. 3.2. Short reflection moments. Introduction. You don't need long therapy sessions to process everyday feelings. Short, structured moments of reflection, one sentence or a minute of focused breathing, help emotions move from body to words. These micro practices are low effort and easy to use throughout your day. One sentence writing one sentence is a small act with a surprisingly big effect. Capture the feeling and its likely cause in a single line. I'm frustrated because the deadline moved, for example. The point is movement, not digestion. The short sentence moves the emotion from a looping sensation into an object you can see. Keep it brief and stop. That one sentence often clarifies what matters next. A quick email, a boundary, or simply a pause. Because you limit analysis, you sidestep rumination and reduce the chance the feeling will replay all evening. Try this as a habit after meetings, tense conversations, or when a mood lingers. Use a sticky note, a phone note, or a tiny paper journal. Over time, these single sentences create a map of repeated stressors and simple actions. The simplicity makes it sustainable. Tiny, actionable clarity instead of carrying an undefined heaviness. 2-breath pause. A 2-breath pause is a micro reset you can do anywhere. Inhale for 4 counts and exhale for 6. And on the exhale, name the feeling, tired, anxious, or annoyed. Repeat once. The slightly longer exhale activates the parasympathetic system and signals your body it's safe to relax. Combining breath with a word anchors the emotion. Naming decreases urgency while the breath calms the body, so the feeling loses some intensity. This practice is discreet enough for a desk, a restroom, or a hallway, making it useful during work or caregiving moments. Start by practicing 3 or 4 times a day, so it becomes automatic when stress appears. If thoughts intrude, return to the rhythm and the label without judgment. Over weeks, you'll notice shorter recovery after stressful moments and fewer feelings that stick around. Quick check-in questions. 3 short questions shift a feeling into a practical frame. Ask, where in my body is this? What does this want me to do right now? What can I do later if needed? Answer each with a brief phrase, no paragraphs, so the emotion becomes useful information instead of a looping problem. Locating the sensation helps you separate mind from body. Naming the immediate prompt reveals simple, calm actions, and identifying a later step gives your brain permission to postpone worry. For example, you might note tight throat, decide take a walk, and set email tomorrow. That small sequence reduces urgency and creates a clear path forward. Use these questions during pauses, in an elevator, before a response, or while waiting for a meeting to start. The practice trains your mind to translate feelings into manageable steps. Over time, you'll notice fewer emotions becoming background clutter because you've given them short, workable answers. Microjournal habit. Keeping a microjournal takes 30 seconds and prevents small moments from piling up. After a stressful interaction, write the one-sentence feeling and add a single follow-up action. I'm annoyed by the meeting. I'll send one clarification email. That small record turns an ephemeral mood into a concrete item you can manage. Use a pocket notebook or a simple phone note labeled microjournal. The habit's value is in consistency. Quick entries build a ledger of recurring triggers and practical responses. Over days, patterns emerge that show which situations drain you and which actions actually help. This practice also frees mental space. Instead of rehearsing an exchange, you've delegated it to the page. On busy days, scanning your short entries takes seconds and guides your next choices. Keep entries compact and non-judgmental. The goal is clarity and movement, not critique. 3.3. Allowing feelings to pass. Introduction. Emotions naturally rise and fall when we give them space. Allowing a feeling to exist for a short, intentional time prevents the resistance that makes it louder. This section offers simple ways to notice without getting stuck or acting impulsively. Notice without fixing. Allowing a feeling doesn't mean you ignore problems or accept harmful behavior. It means you pause long enough to observe the emotion without immediately trying to change it. When you notice without fixing, you reduce the reflex to react. That brief space, just a breath or two, lets intensity drop, and gives your thinking clearer ground. Observing can be as simple as a quiet label, "I feel frustrated," noting where it sits in the body, or writing one short line in a notes app. This practice helps you decide whether action is needed. Some feelings will pass on their own, others point to a helpful next step. By not fixing right away, you avoid escalation and save energy for purposeful responses. Try this. When a tense feeling appears, pause for one breath, name it, and wait 1 minute before deciding. Notice how often the urge to immediately act decreases. Use the wave image. Visualizing a feeling as a wave gives your mind a simple story to hold. The emotion builds, crests, and then recedes. That image reduces the fear that the feeling will stay forever and makes it easier to stay present through the peak. Pair the wave image with slow, steady breaths and a soft focus on physical sensations. Notice where the wave is felt: chest, throat, a tight stomach, and follow its movement without adding judgment. You can also use the image to time your response. When the crest passes, you will often find clearer thinking and more choice in how to respond. Practicing this view trains patience and reduces the impulse to act from the high point of intensity. Try a quick practice. When an emotion rises, picture the wave and take 3 slow breaths as it builds and falls. Notice the change. Over time, the visualization alone can lower reactivity and make emotional moments less disruptive. Set a short, bounded time. Giving an emotion a set, short window makes feeling manageable. Try 60 seconds as a default. It's long enough to notice what's happening, but short enough to avoid getting stuck. Using a clear boundary stops open-ended rumination. During that minute, allow the sensation to be present. Label it, breathe steadily, and notice physical shifts. If thoughts arrive, note them briefly and return focus to the body or breath. The timer is a permission to fully feel without commitment to immediate action. When the minute ends, pause and ask, what's one small, practical step I can take now? Or can I set a time to revisit this? Often the answer is simple: a note, a short walk, or shelving the worry until later. That tiny decision breaks the loop. Use a phone timer or mental count. Over days, you'll notice shorter windows are enough and you'll stop carrying the same feelings forward. The key is consistency, not perfection. Follow with a simple step. After you give a feeling some space, follow with a small, practical step. This doesn't have to solve the whole issue. Choose something low effort that moves the situation forward. Send one clarifying sentence, step outside for 2 minutes, or jot a reminder to revisit the thought later. A tiny step signals to your brain that the feeling has been noticed and doesn't require constant attention. It interrupts the churn of worry and often reduces the emotional charge. You'll find the urge to keep thinking about the same thing eases after a small, concrete action. Keep the follow-up manageable. If the next step is writing an email, limit it to 1 sentence. If it's moving your body, set a 2-minute timer. Small, bounded actions are easier to complete and prevent new layers of obligation from forming. Try a micro-practice. After a 1-minute allow session, take 30 seconds to do one small thing. Track how often that tiny follow-up shortens the lifespan of the feeling. Over time, the habit reduces emotional clutter with minimal effort. That concludes Chapter 3. Join us in the next chapter as we continue our journey through emotional declutter, a practical guide to letting go of what weighs you down. Welcome to Chapter 4 of Emotional Declutter, a practical guide to letting go of what weighs you down. In this chapter, we'll explore Chapter 4, Letting Go of Emotional Weight. Introduction. Letting go feels hard because emotions are tied to meaning and memory. This chapter focuses on practical ways to separate past from present, release unnecessary pressure, and choose lighter responses in everyday situations. The aim is not to erase history, but to free your present self from being ruled by it. Separating past from present. One of the most common sources of emotional weight is carrying past feelings into present moments. You might react to a current remark as if it were an old wound. The first step is to ask, is this happening now, or is this a memory being replayed? That short question helps you locate the origin of the emotion. A simple practice. Before reacting, pause and check 2 things. What is actually happening now, and what am I remembering? If the emotional energy belongs mostly to the memory, note that and decide whether the present moment demands the same response. More often than not, you'll find the present moment is separate and can be handled differently. Visualization can help. Imagine the past event on a film screen a few feet in front of you. Watch it, then close the film and turn back to the room. This mental distance reduces the automatic intensity and allows a more appropriate response to what is happening now, releasing unnecessary pressure. Much emotional weight comes from expectations and assumptions. You expect someone to act a certain way, or you assume you must handle every problem immediately. Those expectations create ongoing pressure that can be gently loosened. 2 practical moves help here: naming the expectation out loud and testing its accuracy. For example, if you feel pressured because you think everyone expects immediate responses, say to yourself, "I feel pressured because I think people need an answer right away." Then ask, "Is that true?" Often the pressure fades as you realize the expectation was self-imposed. Another release strategy is to set small, clear boundaries about what you will take on. If you tend to accept extra tasks to avoid disappointing others, practice declining in a neutral way. "I can't take that on right now." That short statement prevents small expectations from turning into ongoing strain. Choosing lighter responses. Responses shape future clutter. If you answer every slight with a big reaction, you add to both your own emotional pile and the store of unresolved moments with others. Lighter responses create room and reduce reinforcement of heavy patterns. Here are 3 options to practice. Pause, then reply. A 2-breath pause before speaking helps you respond rather than react. Short acknowledgement. Use a brief, composed reply like, "I hear you," or "I'll think about that," to avoid escalating while you consider a measured response. De-escalation line. When emotional heat rises, try "let's revisit this later" to give both sides space and avoid adding to the emotional pile. Choosing lighter responses doesn't mean you avoid important conversations. It means you pick timing and tone that prevent more clutter from forming. It's also kinder to you. When your responses are measured, you conserve emotional energy for the things that matter. Practical exercises for release. Try a short ritual to release built-up weight. It can be literal or symbolic. Write down a nagging thought on a piece of paper, name the feeling, and then either shred the paper, tear it up, or place it in a box labeled "Handle Later." The physical act gives your brain a signal that you have registered the thought and are setting it aside intentionally. Another useful exercise is the emptying frame. Spend 5 minutes listing things that are currently weighing on you. Don't explain them, just list. Then prioritize 3 items that actually need action now. For the rest, place them in a mental "someday" folder. That act of separating urgent from non-urgent clears a lot of mental noise. Balancing memory and freedom. Letting go doesn't erase memory or lessons. You keep the learning but release the burden. If a past mistake taught you something useful, keep the lesson and let go of the guilt. If a relationship ended badly, keep the boundary and stop replaying the replay of the ending. Memory can be a resource rather than a trap when you choose what to hold on to. Practice for this chapter. Pick 1 recurring emotional weight from your list. Use the emptying frame to list related thoughts for 5 minutes. Then select 1 small action step you can take in the next 48 hours. For thoughts that remain, use a symbolic release like tearing the paper or placing it in a "someday" box. Notice how much lighter you feel afterward. 4.1. Separating past from present. When old feelings show up in new moments, they make small situations feel bigger than they are. This short section helps you notice whether an emotion belongs to what's happening now or to a memory. With a few practical checks, you can pause automatic reactions and choose a response that fits the present. Ask 2 quick questions. Before you respond to something emotionally charged, pause and ask 2 simple questions. Is this happening now? And am I remembering something else? These queries take less than 10 seconds and force your attention to the present reality rather than an automatic replay. When you practice these checks, you start to notice patterns. Certain situations trigger old reactions even though the facts are different. That recognition itself reduces the power of the memory and makes your responses more intentional. Use the questions silently if speaking feels awkward. Over time, the habit becomes instant. The two questions create a small gap where choice replaces reflex, so you reply from the present rather than react from the past. Pair the questions with a 1 to 2 breath pause. The breath anchors you, slows the rush of feeling, and gives space to notice whether the energy belongs to now or to a memory. If it's mostly memory, choose a calmer, proportionate response instead of replaying the past. Create mental distance with a visualization. Visualization helps create mental space between you and the past event. Imagine the memory playing on a small screen a few feet in front of you. Watch it calmly as if you were an observer, noticing details without getting pulled in. When the scene is on the screen, remind yourself that the image is separate from the present room. Close the screen in your mind and shift your attention back to where you are now, your body, the sounds, and the physical space around you. This simple distance reduces the automatic intensity of the memory and gives you choice. You can respond based on current facts instead of reacting from a replayed version of the past. Practice for a minute whenever an old emotion arrives. It quickly becomes an accessible tool. If it helps, add a physical cue. Imagine closing a small curtain over the screen or place a hand on your chest as a reminder you are present. Small anchors like these strengthen the separation over time. Label the memory aloud. Putting a simple label on a memory, even a few words spoken aloud, shifts how your brain treats it. Say things like, "That's my worry," or "This is a past hurt," to help your mind categorize the emotion as something remembered, not an immediate threat. Speaking aloud breaks the internal loop and creates distance. The verbal cue is a signal to both your thinking mind and your body that the experience is being noticed and filed, which reduces urgency and lowers physiological arousal. You don't need eloquence. A short, steady phrase works. Use it privately, in public, or whisper it if that feels safer. Over time, the label becomes an automatic step in your emotional toolkit, stopping instant reactions and inviting clearer responses. Try it as an experiment. When a memory flares, state the label, breathe, then choose an action. Notice whether the urge to act wakes down. With regular use, labeling helps your mind sort what needs care now and what can be stored without grabbing your attention. Practice small pauses before action. A brief pause before you act is a powerful, low-effort habit. Take 2 slow breaths when you feel a strong emotion rising. Those breaths interrupt the automatic chain reaction and give you a moment to assess what is happening. Use the pause to ask what's real now, how big the event is, and whether your response will help. Even a short check prevents overreaction and reduces the chance that past feelings will steer your choices. Pauses also calm your nervous system. Slow breathing shifts you from urgency toward more regulated thinking, so decisions come from clarity rather than heat. Practice the 2-breath pause in low-stress moments so it becomes automatic when you need it most. A simple script can help. Inhale, name the feeling, exhale, then decide. That template keeps the pause focused and makes it easier to translate a break into a useful, measured response. Fort 2. Releasing unnecessary pressure. Pressure often comes from unspoken expectations or habits of doing too much. This section shows how naming expectations, testing their accuracy, and setting small boundaries can ease ongoing strain. You don't need dramatic change. Tiny shifts add up. Name the expectation out loud. When pressure rises, putting the assumed demand into words makes it easier to see. A short sentence such as, "I feel pressured because I think I must respond right away," turns a vague tension into a concrete thought you can evaluate. Say it quietly to yourself or jot it down. This act separates the feeling from automatic action and gives you a moment to assess whether the expectation comes from others or from your own habit. Naming also reduces the emotional charge. Once identified, assumptions often look less urgent. Try pairing the phrase with a calm breath or a one-line follow-up question. Who says this must happen now? That gentle curiosity weakens the assumption's pull and opens space for a different choice. Over time, naming becomes a quick habit that prevents small assumptions from becoming ongoing strain. Test the belief before acting. A short reality check before you respond prevents imagined demands from dictating your behavior. Ask yourself a simple question. Is this actually required of me now? That single query helps you distinguish immediate needs from mental noise. Look for evidence. Is there a deadline, a message explicitly asking you, or a clear consequence? If not, allow the possibility that the pressure is projected. You can also ask a clarifying question of the other person or set a small time buffer. Can I get back to you in 2 hours? Testing the belief reduces impulsive fixes and preserves your energy for genuine priorities. Over time, practicing this habit trains your brain to pause and verify rather than automatically carry every assumed demand as an unresolved task. Set tiny, clear boundaries. Small, neutral refusals protect your capacity without drama. Simple lines like, I can't do that today, or I'll get back to you tomorrow, communicate limits clearly and kindly. They prevent obligations from stacking up into a heavy backlog. Start with tiny boundaries that feel safe. Use the same short phrases consistently so others learn what you can and cannot take on. Body language and tone matter. Calm and steady delivery makes the boundary easier to accept. Remember that tiny boundaries build confidence for larger ones. Each small no is practice in preserving your space. Over time, these consistent little choices reduce cumulative pressure and stop minor requests from turning into chronic overload. Shift the default of immediate solving. Allowing yourself to postpone problem-solving changes how much unfinished mental work you carry. Instead of jumping to an instant fix, try a short deferral. I'll take time to think about this and reply tomorrow. This grants your mind breathing room to consider options. Use structured delay. Give yourself a defined pause, an hour, a day, or a scheduled slot, so the matter isn't left looping in the background. During that time, prioritize whether the issue truly needs action or can wait without consequence. Shifting the default reduces constant reactivity and the accumulation of half-done tasks in your mind. It encourages considered responses, conserves emotional energy, and prevents small problems from piling up into lasting weight. 4.3. Choosing lighter responses. Your responses shape future emotional clutter. Responding lightly when appropriate keeps interactions calm and stops adding to both your own load and other people's. This section offers simple response options you can try in everyday moments. Pause, then reply, taking a brief pause before answering. Just 2 calm breaths gives your body and mind a moment to settle. That tiny space reduces the natural reflex to react and creates room for intention. During the pause, you can notice sensations, name a single feeling, for example, annoyed or surprised, and choose the tone you want. That quick check-in shifts you from autopilot to purpose. Practically, try breathing in for 2 counts and out for 2, then speak. You don't need to explain the pause. A neutral start like, let me think about that, signals you're present rather than defensive. Over time, the pause becomes a habit that cools heated exchanges, prevents hurtful remarks, and preserves energy for important responses. It's a small skill with big returns. Practice in low-stakes moments, answering a text or discussing weekend plans, until it feels natural. The pause not only lowers immediate tension, but also reduces later rumination by preventing words you'll regret. Use brief acknowledgments. Brief acknowledgments are short phrases that show you're listening without escalating emotion. Saying, I hear you, or thanks for telling me, signals respect and keeps the exchange calm. These replies do 2 jobs. They validate the person's experience and give you breathing room to decide if a longer conversation is necessary. That pause prevents reactive clarifications that can add emotional weight. Use neutral language and keep your tone steady. Avoid adding qualifiers like but or immediate defenses that undo the calming effect. If more is needed, follow up with a calm question like, can you tell me more about what you mean? Practice these lines until they feel natural. Use them on phone calls, in meetings, or when someone expresses frustration. Over time, brief acknowledgments build respectful habits and reduce the chance that small tensions become long-lasting emotional clutter. Pair short phrases with a calm nod or soft eye contact. Nonverbal cues reinforce your words and help the other person feel heard. Offer to revisit later. When a conversation becomes heated or emotional, offering to revisit the topic later is a practical way to prevent impulsive reactions. Saying, let's come back to this later creates space for cooling off and thoughtful responses. This line buys time for both people to gather facts, calm intense feelings, and reflect on what matters. It also reduces the odds of saying things you'll regret, which adds to emotional clutter later on. To make the promise useful, offer a rough time frame. Can we talk about this after dinner? Or let's revisit tomorrow morning. A specific window shows respect and prevents the issue from being ignored indefinitely. While you wait, use the pause to jot down key points, breathe, or do a short walk to shift perspective. Returning later often leads to clearer solutions and fewer recurring resentments. Use this approach for decisions that can wait. For urgent safety concerns, address them immediately. Practicing delayed conversations teaches emotional discipline and preserves relationships. Choose clarity over volume. Choosing clarity over volume means saying what you mean plainly without adding extra explanations, justifications, or emotional amplification. Clear messages are easier to understand and less likely to be misinterpreted. Keep sentences short and concrete. Use I statements like, I felt left out when that happened, instead of broad accusations. Specificity removes guesswork and reduces the emotional charge the other person needs to manage. Avoid raising your voice to make a point. Louder delivery often adds defensiveness rather than clarity. If you need emphasis, choose calm repetition or a single strong sentence rather than an escalating monologue. Practice framing a single clear request or observation before expanding. For example, I need more notice for changes, states a need without emotional overload. Clarity reduces lingering resentment and keeps conversations productive. Over time, choosing clarity conserves emotional energy and prevents small misunderstandings from turning into long-term patterns you carry. It's a compassionate way to communicate, honest without adding unnecessary weight. 4. Practical exercises for release. Small rituals and short lists help your brain know that a thought has been handled. Use these exercises to move emotions out of your head and into a manageable place. They're quick, easy, and designed for daily use. Write and release. Writing a nagging thought down creates distance. Take a scrap of paper and name the feeling: angry, worried, embarrassed, or tired. Putting a label on it reduces its fuzzy power and gives your mind a clear object to work with. Choose a symbolic action that feels right. Tear the paper, shred it, burn it safely, or drop it into a box labeled "Handle Later." The physical gesture signals to your brain that you registered the thought and are intentionally setting it aside. If you prefer a quieter approach, fold the note and place it in a drawer or a someday jar. You're not erasing the experience, you are organizing it. This small ritual helps prevent repetitive replay and frees attention for what matters now. Try this for 1 week. Notice if the same thought returns. If it does, write it again and consider whether it needs a tiny action or can remain in the handle later box. Emptying frame. The emptying frame is a timed list that clears mental clutter fast. Set a timer for 5 minutes and write everything weighing on you. Don't explain or analyze. Just list items as they come. When time's up, review quickly and highlight 3 items that genuinely need action this week. These become your priority list. Small, specific steps you can take to reduce real pressure. Everything else goes into a someday folder, a note on your phone, or a labeled box. That act of choosing where things belong tells your brain the rest can wait, lowering the background tension. Do this weekly or whenever you feel scattered. The frame trains your mind to separate urgent from habitual worry, so you stop treating every thought as an emergency and create breathing room in your day. Over time, this simple ritual reduces constant low-level anxiety and helps you notice patterns that require different habits or boundaries. 2-minute reflection. 2 minutes anywhere. That's all you need to interrupt a recurring thought. Pause, close your eyes if it's safe, and take 3 slow breaths to center yourself. Name one feeling in a single word: frustrated, tired, hopeful. Then ask, what is one tiny next step? That step can be as small as sending a message, writing a note, or choosing to wait. If no action is needed, allow yourself to decide, not now. That permission is powerful. It stops the automatic mental loop that treats every feeling as a problem needing immediate fixing. Practice this twice daily or whenever you notice tension. Short, regular checks keep emotions moving and prevent small worries from turning into persistent weight. Over weeks, you'll notice less reactivity and more clarity because small pauses compound into a calmer habit that changes how you respond to stress daily. Anchor and let go. Anchor and let go links a small physical cue to a brief release. Choose an anchor, rubbing thumb and forefinger, tapping your sternum, or pressing your palm, something subtle you can repeat anywhere. When tension appears, use the anchor for about 1 minute. Breathe deliberately, notice where you feel tightness, and imagine the tension moving out of your body with each exhale. After the minute, open your hands or stop the action and notice the change. The anchor becomes a conditioned cue. Over time, the physical motion by itself helps the nervous system downshift. Practice pairing the anchor with release at least once a day until it feels natural. This quick habit is useful in meetings, before sleep, or during brief pauses, offering a predictable way to let small burdens go. If you want, name the release, say quietly, "let go," to reinforce the connection between the motion and the intention. 4.5. Balancing memory and freedom. Letting go doesn't mean erasing lessons or pretending things didn't matter. It means keeping what helps and releasing what drains. This section shows how to hold learning without carrying weight, so memory becomes a resource instead of a burden. Separate lesson from guilt. When a mistake still feels heavy, intentionally distinguish the useful lesson from the lingering guilt. Start by naming one clear takeaway in a single sentence. I learned X. This small shift moves attention from punishment toward practical insight. Allow the emotion to be noticed without letting it define you. Briefly acknowledge how you feel. I feel guilty right now. Then decide to set the guilt aside after any needed repair or apology. This step maintains responsibility without ongoing self-punishment. Reinforce the separation with a small corrective action or a concrete behavior change. Once you act, mark the lesson as complete by writing it down. That creates closure and prevents guilt from replaying infinitely. Over time, repeating this habit frees mental space. Periodically review your short lesson notes to see growth rather than rehearse shame. This practice helps you keep learning while releasing the weight of ongoing guilt. Keep boundaries, not blame. Boundaries protect your energy. Blame keeps you stuck in past stories. When a relationship or situation leaves residue, remind yourself of the boundary you need and why you set it, without replaying the whole narrative of hurt. Practice a concise internal script. State the boundary. I don't take calls after 9 p.m., and the reason, I need rest to be present. Repeating those facts is enough. There's no need to rehash every detail of the past incident that led to the rule. If memories pull you toward blame, redirect to action. What will you do differently now to honor your limit? Use short, neutral phrases when enforcing boundaries so the interaction stays focused and doesn't escalate into renewed emotional burden. Keeping boundaries reduces the mental loop of replaying events. It preserves your well-being while allowing relationships to exist without turning every memory into fresh pain. Store memories with context. When an old memory surfaces, add immediate context. Who was involved, when it happened, and what has changed since. This simple update often reduces the memory's emotional intensity by placing it within a larger, evolving story. Ask quick contextual questions. Is this happening now? Who am I with? What is different today? Naming the present facts, your location, your feelings, and the passage of time creates cognitive distance from the original charge. Visual techniques help. Imagine pinning the memory to a timeline or storing it in a labeled box that includes a short note about outcomes or changes. Seeing the event as one chapter among many reduces its power to hijack your mood. Keeping a brief journal entry with contextual notes makes the practice easier. Over time, you'll notice memories shift from urgent replay to informative moments within a fuller life narrative. Create a learning ritual. Turn reflection into a short ritual so memories become resources rather than noisy repeats. After thinking about a difficult event, write one sentence that names the lesson and one sentence that releases the ongoing feeling. For example, I learned X. I let go of the guilt. Make the process concrete. Set 5 to 10 minutes. Find a quiet spot, write the 2 sentences, and place the note in a journal or a jar labeled lessons. The physical act signals to your brain that the thought has been registered and repurposed. Reviewing these notes periodically converts memory into a practical guide. When guilt or rumination returns, consult the entry to remind yourself of the lesson and the intentional release you recorded. Doing this ritual monthly builds evidence of growth and reduces repetitive replay. Over time, The habit trains your mind to extract value from past events without carrying the extra weight. This wraps up Chapter 4. Stay tuned for more insights in the upcoming chapter.
A brief pause. If this audiobook has been meaningful so far, you may consider subscribing to Bivena Audio, where new spoken books and thoughtful readings are shared regularly. Now, we return to the text.
Welcome to Chapter 5 of Emotional Declutter, a practical guide to letting go of what weighs you down. In this chapter, we'll explore Chapter 5, Strengthening Emotional Boundaries. Introduction. Boundaries are the practical lines we set to protect our emotional space. They aren't walls, they're choices about how much you take on and how you respond. This chapter covers how to recognize your limits, protect your emotional space, and say no in ways that feel clear and fair. Strong boundaries reduce the inflow of emotional clutter so you can manage what remains. Recognizing emotional limits. Everyone has a threshold for how much emotional input they can handle in a day. Recognizing your limits starts with noticing signs, feeling flooded after long conversations, needing more downtime than others, or becoming irritated in situations that used to be fine. These are signals your limit is being reached. To map your limits, track energy rather than time. After a social event, ask, how much energy did I have before, and how much now? If the drop is steep, the event likely crossed your boundary. Over time, you'll learn which types of interactions leave you refreshed and which ones drain you. Recognizing limits also means accepting them without judgment. Limits aren't flaws, they're useful information. When you know yours, you can plan life in a way that prevents chronic overload. Protecting your emotional space. Protecting emotional space looks different depending on your life. It can mean reducing exposure to draining conversations, limiting time on social media, or asking for brief pauses in stressful interactions. The goal is to create regular, predictable pockets of rest so emotions don't accumulate unchecked. Simple protections include scheduling alone time, setting clear communication windows, like no messages after 9 p.m., and choosing who you share sensitive topics with. You don't owe everyone access to your inner world. Being selective is part of staying light. Another practical idea is to use physical space as emotional support. Create a small corner or routine that signals rest, a 5-minute tea break, a walk after work, or a short breathing sequence before meetings. These micro checkpoints lower cumulative strain, saying no when needed. Saying no is a boundary tool that keeps emotional clutter from growing. Many people worry saying no will damage relationships. In practice, clear, polite refusals often earn respect and reduce resentment. 3 simple ways to say no. Direct but kind. I can't do that right now. Short, honest, and clean. Offer an alternative. I can't help today, but I can look at that on Friday. This keeps connection while protecting your energy. Delay to decide. I need to check my schedule. I'll get back to you. This prevents automatic yeses and gives you time to consider the emotional cost. Practice setting small, daily boundaries so that saying no becomes easier. Start with low-stakes situations and build up. Each successful no increases your confidence and reduces the emotional load you pick up on instinct, boundary conversations. Sometimes a boundary needs a short conversation. You don't need to explain everything. Keep it brief, focus on behavior, and name a positive alternative. For example, when conversations get heated, I need a short break so I can respond calmly. Let's pause and continue in 15 minutes. This frames boundaries as helpful rather than punitive. Remember that others may resist boundaries at first. That's normal. Stay consistent. Over time, people adapt, and the emotional environment becomes healthier for everyone involved. Keeping boundaries flexible. Boundaries aren't rigid walls. They're flexible lines that can change with circumstances. On rare important occasions, you might extend yourself. The key is that it's a choice rather than a habit of overgiving. Track how often you bend a boundary and why. If it's frequent, reassess whether the boundary needs adjusting or firmer reinforcement. Practice for this chapter. Identify one situation this week where you can set a small boundary, skip a meeting, limit a social media session, or say no to an extra task. Note how it feels to choose your limit and what changes in your energy over the next day. Small experiments build stronger, sustainable boundaries. 5.1. Recognizing emotional limits. Knowing your emotional limits starts with simple observation. It's about spotting the moments when your energy dips, when a conversation leaves you drained, or when small things feel heavier than they used to. This short awareness gives you clear information you can use to protect your inner space. Notice physical and emotional signals. Your body often notices stress before your mind does. Tight shoulders, a fluttering chest, shallow breathing, sudden fatigue, or a quick spike of irritation are all honest signals that you're approaching your limit. When you spot a signal, take a moment to name it aloud or in your head. Tight shoulders, racing thoughts, or sudden tiredness. Naming brings the sensation into awareness and reduces its mystery, making it easier to respond rather than react. Track how long these sensations last and what immediately preceded them. A short note in your phone or a mental check-in after a meeting can reveal patterns. Over time, you'll recognize early warning signs and can use quick, practical responses, like a 2-minute breath, a stretch, or stepping outside to prevent the overload from growing. Track energy, not just time. Measuring social life by hours alone misses an important point. Not all hours affect you equally. A single conversation can leave you drained, while a joyful hour with a friend can feel restoring. Tracking energy shifts helps you plan with intention. After events, ask 2 simple questions. How did I feel before? And how do I feel now? Record the answer briefly, better, neutral, or worse, and note why. Over weeks, this creates a personal map of what restores you and what depletes you. Use that map to schedule your week. Favor activities that replenish energy on demanding days and avoid back-to-back obligations. This approach prevents chronic fatigue and keeps you operating within realistic emotional limits instead of running on autopilot. Accept your limits without judgment. Limits are practical information, not moral failures. Accepting that you have emotional boundaries frees you from the pressure to match others' capacities and helps you make kinder choices toward yourself. When you notice a limit, replace self-criticism with a neutral observation. I'm at my limit right now. This small shift reduces shame and gives you permission to act. Rest, say no, or step back without drama. Acceptance also helps you communicate clearly. When you state your needs calmly, I need a short break, others usually respond with understanding. Over time, honoring limits reduces burnout and allows you to engage with more presence when you choose to be involved. Identify common triggers and patterns. Some situations reliably sap your energy: certain topics, crowded spaces, lengthy calls, or specific people. Noticing these triggers makes it possible to plan defenses before you're overwhelmed. Keep a simple list of recurring stressors. Note the context and any warning signs that appeared beforehand. Patterns often show up as repeats, the same subject that derails your mood or back-to-back meetings that leave you hollow. Once identified, take small preventive steps. Schedule breaks between calls, set topic limits for conversations, or avoid gatherings that consistently drain you. These small changes reduce the accumulation of emotional clutter and let you manage your capacity with practical, preemptive choices. 5.2. Protecting your emotional space. Protecting your emotional space means creating predictable support so feelings don't pile up. It's less about isolation and more about choosing when and how you let things in. Small, regular protections make a big difference over time. Create regular pockets of rest. Small, regular breaks stop emotions from stacking up and keep your day manageable. Think of micro breaks as short pauses that let tension settle before it grows. They act as quick resets so you don't carry small stresses into the next task. Simple options include a 5-minute walk, a short breathing sequence, stretching, or a cup of tea without screens. These moments don't need to be elaborate. The point is to step out of automatic reactivity and come back with a clearer head. Try scheduling these pockets into your calendar or linking them to daily cues, after checking email or before a meeting. Over time, these tiny resets add up and make emotional maintenance feel natural rather than another task. Consistency matters more than length. 5 minutes several times a day often helps more than one long break. Notice how your mood shifts after a pocket of rest and adjust the types that work best for you. Start small. Set clear communication rules. Clear communication rules reduce unexpected emotional pulls by setting predictable boundaries for others. When people know your availability, they're less likely to interrupt or expect immediate emotional labor, which lowers daily friction. Examples include a rule like no work messages after the evening, designated check-in times with family, or replying to non-urgent messages within a day. Choose rules that fit your rhythms and explain them kindly, so people understand they help you stay present and calm. Set clear consequences that matter to you, such as not answering until a set time, and stick to them. Consistency trains others and reduces the emotional friction of unpredictability, which keeps your energy steadier. Communicate rules briefly and without apology. A short phrase like, "I check work messages after dinner," is enough. Be open to small adjustments when needed, but keep the core rules intact so rest remains reliable. Be selective about sharing. Not every thought or annoyance needs a deep conversation. Being selective about who you share with preserves emotional energy and keeps important relationships from becoming overloaded. This helps you focus support where it matters most. Use simple criteria: trust, past responses, and willingness to listen. If someone has shown empathy and discretion, they're likely a good choice for heavier topics. If a person tends to escalate or turn conversations toward themselves, save sensitive subjects for someone else. You can also use lighter outlets, journaling, a walk, or a short vent to a casual friend, to offload minor irritations. These quick releases prevent small frustrations from turning into lasting emotional clutter and reduce the need for always involving others. Being selective doesn't mean shutting people out. It's about caring for your inner resources so the conversations you do have are safer and more nourishing. Over time, this choice increases trust and reduces the need to constantly process every feeling out loud. Use physical space as support. Physical surroundings send signals to your brain. A designated corner or brief ritual acts as a cue that it's time to rest or reset, which helps emotions shift out of active hold and reduces carryover stress between tasks. Create a small, accessible spot that's associated with calm: a favorite chair, a plant-lit window, or a particular playlist. Keep it simple so you actually use it. Complicated setups often become ineffective and end up unused. Pair the space with a short routine: a 2-minute breathing practice, a quick stretch sequence, or a cup of tea. These rituals mark a boundary between activity and rest and make emotional maintenance quick and reliable throughout the day. Use movement and transitions too: walks to and from work, a 5-minute tidy up, or changing into comfortable clothes after an intense task. Small physical shifts help your nervous system let go and protect emotional reserves. Experiment with different cues to discover what reliably signals rest for you. 5.3. Saying no when needed. Saying no is one of the clearest ways to keep emotional clutter from growing. It doesn't have to be harsh. It just needs to be honest and practiced. Getting comfortable with no protects your time and your peace. Use direct but kind refusals. Short, honest responses like, "I can't do that right now," are both effective and respectful. A concise refusal gives the other person clear information and stops a request from turning into a negotiation or a guilt spiral. You don't owe a long explanation. Clarity is a kindness to everyone involved. Keep your tone calm and neutral. The same words can sound harsh or gentle depending on your voice and body language, so practice staying composed. If you feel pressure to justify yourself, a brief repeat of the original phrase works: "I can't right now." Over time, consistent, kind refusals build trust and reduce resentment. People learn your limits and start to make requests with more awareness. That lowers the emotional clutter you carry from overcommitting or feeling obliged to explain every decision. Offer useful alternatives. When you want to stay connected but can't take something on, offering an alternative keeps the relationship intact. For example, "I can't do this today, but I can check in on Friday." Or, "I can't help with that, but I can suggest someone who can." Alternatives make a refusal feel constructive. Be realistic with what you offer. A vague promise creates future clutter because you'll feel pressured later. Choose a clear time or different way to help that matches your actual capacity. This approach preserves goodwill while protecting your energy. It shows you value the person without giving away more than you have. Over time, this habit reduces the frequency of exhausted yeses and keeps your emotional space lighter. Delay to decide. When asked for something on the spot, a pause can be your best tool. Let me check my calendar and get back to you. That simple delay prevents automatic yeses that often lead to regret and emotional overload. Use the pause to consider the real cost: time, energy, or emotional bandwidth. Checking before committing gives you a moment to weigh priorities and avoid overextending yourself. It also models thoughtful decision-making for others. Make a habit of responding with a decision window rather than an immediate answer. Even a short, intentional delay reduces momentum toward an unnecessary obligation and keeps your inner resources intact. Practicing this small step will help stop boundary erosion before it starts. Practice with low-stakes situations. Start setting boundaries where the consequences are minor. Skip a casual invite you don't want to attend, or turn down a small favor that feels inconvenient. These low-stakes no's are your training ground for firmer limits in more important moments. Each successful small refusal builds confidence and makes it easier to be clear when stakes are higher. Notice how your body and mood change after saying no. That feedback helps you recognize when a boundary truly serves you. Gradual practice prevents the all-or-nothing trap. Over time, small experiments turn into reliable habits that protect your emotional energy and reduce the accumulation of mental clutter. Celebrate the tiny wins. They add up. 5.4. Boundary conversations. Some boundaries need a short conversation. These talks don't have to be long or emotional, just clear, specific, and calm. The goal is to change behavior around you in ways that protect your emotional balance. Keep it brief and behavior-focused. Keeping it brief and focusing on behavior helps a boundary conversation stay calm and practical. State what you need changed rather than labeling the person. For example, when our talks go late, I feel drained. Can we end by 9? That points to a specific habit to adjust instead of attacking character. Short, clear requests reduce defensiveness and make it easier for the other person to respond. You don't need a long explanation. State the issue, the impact on you, and a simple solution in 1 or 2 sentences so the message lands without escalating. If emotions rise, bring the focus back to the action. I'm asking for this time limit so I can be present. This steers the talk toward cooperation. Over time, brief, behavior-focused language trains others to notice what actually needs to change and protects your emotional space. Use I statements and clear timeframes. I statements reduce blame and make requests easier to hear. Start sentences with what you experience, not what the other person did. For example, I feel overwhelmed when the conversation escalates, rather than, you always make things dramatic. The first format helps the other person understand the impact without becoming defensive. Pair your I statement with a clear time frame or action you can both follow. Saying, I need a short pause when things get heated. Let's take 15 minutes and come back, gives a concrete step and a predictable boundary. Timeframes make the boundary measurable and less vague. Use simple, honest language. One sentence that names the feeling and the requested pause is often enough. Combining I statements with specific timeframes creates a respectful structure that protects your emotional balance and encourages cooperation. Offer a positive alternative. Offering a positive alternative keeps the connection alive while protecting your limits. Instead of only refusing, suggest a different time, format, or way to engage that feels manageable. For example, I can't talk about this tonight, but I can give you my full attention tomorrow after lunch. That shows you care and sets a safe container. Alternatives can be short and practical. Propose a 10-minute check-in later, suggest writing thoughts in a message, or choose a location that reduces stress. The idea is to replace a draining option with one that supports calm interaction. Framing boundaries this way reduces guilt and makes it easier for the other person to accept the change. It models problem solving. You self-protect without shutting the door. Over time, offering alternatives becomes a gentle habit that preserves relationships while keeping your emotional space lighter. It feels kinder and clearer. Expect initial resistance and stay consistent. People often test new boundaries, especially if old habits benefited them. Expect pushback, confusion, or questions when you first change how you respond. That doesn't mean your boundary is wrong. It means adjustment is needed. Seeing resistance as part of the process helps you stay calm and steady. When someone resists, repeat the request calmly and without lengthy justification. A simple reminder, "I need to pause for 15 minutes," is more effective than an extended defense. Consistency teaches others what you will and won't accept, and over time their behavior shifts to match your limits. If pressure continues, reinforce the boundary with a consequence you can follow through on, such as stepping away from the conversation or postponing the topic. Keep consequences proportional and predictable. Staying consistent is an act of care for yourself. It reduces future emotional clutter and builds respectful patterns in relationships. 5. Keeping boundaries flexible. Boundaries work best when they're clear but adaptable. Flexibility lets you respond to real needs without slipping back into automatic overgiving. The trick is choosing exceptions deliberately rather than out of habit. Treat boundaries as choices, not rules. Seeing boundaries as choices frees them from a rigid, punitive feel. Instead of thinking, "I must never," try framing it as, "I choose to." This small language shift reminds you that boundaries are tools to protect your energy, not moral tests you must always pass. Choices let you respond to human complexity. Some days you have more bandwidth and can be flexible. Other days you need firm limits. That variability doesn't mean your boundaries are weak. It means you're tuning them to reality. When you treat boundaries as deliberate choices, you also reduce guilt. You can explain decisions without long defenses. "I'm choosing to rest tonight." This clarity tends to earn respect because people respond better to calm, intentional language than to defensiveness or shame. Use brief self-checks. Before agreeing, ask whether this serves your priorities. If it doesn't, remember you're simply choosing differently. That mindset keeps boundaries sustainable and humane over the long term. Make conscious exceptions. Exceptions happen, and that's okay when they're intentional. A conscious exception is a deliberate decision to bend a boundary for a clear reason. For example, helping a close friend in crisis or attending a rare family event. Naming the reason helps you keep perspective. When you bend a boundary, say it out loud to yourself or jot it down. "I'm doing this because" anchors the choice and prevents automatic overgiving. This simple act makes exceptions feel purposeful rather than habitual. Conscious exceptions also set expectations. If you explain to others why you made an exception, they can understand that it's not a permanent change. That communication protects the boundary and reduces the risk of ongoing erosion. Finally, let exceptions be infrequent and meaningful. The more intentional you are about when and why you bend your rules, the easier it becomes to preserve your emotional reserves most of the time. Track how often you bend and why. Keeping a short log for a few weeks can reveal patterns you don't notice in the moment. Note when you say yes against your better judgment, what you agreed to, and the reason you gave. Even a few lines per incident is enough to spot trends. This record isn't for judgment, it's data. You might discover certain people or situations trigger automatic compliance, or that fatigue makes you more likely to overcommit. Recognizing those patterns gives you concrete targets for change. Use the log to ask practical questions. Was this a one-off? Did I regret it later? Did the outcome justify the cost? Over time, you'll see whether exceptions are rare or piling up. When you review entries weekly, you can adjust your approach intentionally. That empirical insight makes boundary decisions clearer and reduces the slow creep of emotional clutter. Adjust boundaries as life changes. Boundaries should evolve with your life stage, workload, and relationships. What felt right last year may no longer fit. Periodic reviews, monthly or quarterly, help keep them aligned with your current needs and energy levels. Start small. Scan your calendar and recent commitments. Notice where you felt drained and where you felt energized. Those moments point to which boundaries need tightening or loosening. Be honest about trade-offs. If a new job requires more evening attention for a season, you might temporarily shift social boundaries while protecting core rest. Mark these changes as deliberate, with an endpoint if possible. Flexibility doesn't mean inconsistency. When you intentionally update boundaries, communicate the change briefly to those affected and track how it feels. Regular tuning keeps boundaries realistic and preserves emotional space over time. That concludes Chapter 5. Join us in the next chapter as we continue our journey through emotional declutter, a practical guide to letting go of what weighs you down. Welcome to Chapter 6 of Emotional Declutter, a practical guide to letting go of what weighs you down. In this chapter, we'll explore Chapter 6, Creating Emotional Reset Habits. Introduction. Habits are the steady rhythms that keep emotional clutter from building up. This chapter outlines simple daily and weekly practices that help you check in, review what matters, and adjust routines. These habits are short, practical, and designed to fit into busy lives, so emotional resets become part of your normal rhythm. Daily emotional check-ins. Daily check-ins are small pauses that catch emotions before they grow. They don't need to be long. 1 to 5 minutes is enough. The aim is to notice lingering feelings and decide whether to process them now or schedule a time to handle them. A simple daily check-in format. Pause for 1 minute and take 3 slow breaths. Name one feeling you noticed during the day. Decide one small action. Write a note, set a reminder, or let it go with a breath. Keeping the check-in short makes it easy to repeat. Over time, these mini resets prevent the accrual of small unresolved moments. Think of them as quick clears for your emotional desk. Weekly emotional review. Weekly reviews are where you step back and see the bigger pattern. Spend 15 to 30 minutes reflecting on the week. Look for what drained you and what supported you. The review helps you spot trends and plan adjustments for the coming week. Use a simple template. What were 3 emotional highs? What were 3 drains? What one change would make next week easier? Based on your answers, pick one practical adjustment. Shorten a meeting, schedule an early night, or plan a conversation. Keep the change small so you can actually do it. The weekly review is also a good time to clear out small unfinished items. If a thought requires less than 5 minutes, do it. If it needs more time, schedule it. This prevents the one-day list from becoming a long-term pile. Adjusting your habits. Small habit changes keep emotional space light. You don't need to overhaul your entire life. Instead, pick tiny, manageable shifts that add up. Examples include turning off notifications for a part of the day to reduce reactivity, adding a 5-minute walk after work to separate the day's events from evening time, writing one sentence at night about anything unresolved to release thoughts before bed. Track each tiny habit for 2 weeks. If it sticks, keep it. If not, tweak it. The goal is consistency more than perfection. These habits should serve you, not become another source of pressure. Tools to support habit formation. Use simple tools to make habits easier. Phone reminders, calendar blocks, or a physical habit card. Pair a new habit with an existing routine. Do your check-in after brushing your teeth or your weekly review on Sunday morning coffee. Habit stacking like this makes new practices easier to maintain. Another helpful tool is accountability. Share a simple habit with a friend or partner and check in once a week. That small social support can boost consistency without making the habit complex. Long-term habit mindset. Think long-term. Emotional reset habits are not a quick fix, but a slow, steady practice. Expect some misses and course correct without shame. Over months, small habits compound into a lighter, more manageable inner life. The point is to create regular maintenance so you don't need dramatic interventions later. Practice for this chapter. Pick one daily check-in and one weekly review format from this chapter. Commit to them for 2 weeks. At the end of 2 weeks, note one change you observed in your clarity or stress level. Use that observation to adjust the habits going forward. 6.1. Daily emotional check-ins. Short, regular pauses that catch feelings before they grow into clutter. 1 to 5 minute pause. Take 3 slow breaths, notice what's present, and ground yourself. A 1 to 5 minute pause is a simple reset you can use anytime. Start by taking 3 slow, intentional breaths. Inhale, hold briefly, exhale. That sequence helps shift your nervous system from automatic reactivity to a quieter state. After the breaths, take a quick scan of your body and mind. Notice any tightness, a repeating thought, or an emotion near the surface. Naming these physical or mental sensations makes them less slippery and more manageable. Grounding can be as small as feeling your feet on the floor, noticing the chair supporting you, or naming 3 things you can see. These tiny anchors bring attention back to the present and reduce the chance that a fleeting feeling will become stuck. Because this pause is short, it's easy to practice regularly. Use it between tasks, before a conversation, or anytime you sense rising tension. Small pauses compound into a calmer daily rhythm. Name the feeling. Saying it out loud or jotting one word, frustrated, tired, relieved, reduces fuzzy anxiety. Naming a feeling is a deceptively powerful step. When you put a word to what's inside, frustrated, tired, relieved, you create distance between you and the emotion. That distance reduces the confusion and intensity that come from vague, unnamed states. Try saying the word quietly, out loud, or writing it down on a sticky note. Even a single word label stabilizes the mind and signals that this is something to observe rather than become swept up in. This simple act interrupts rumination and gives you a starting point for a next step. If you're unsure which word fits, pick a close option and adjust later. Over time, you'll build a more precise emotional vocabulary, which helps you spot patterns and choose responses. Remember, the goal isn't to judge the feeling, it's to acknowledge it. Naming takes seconds but changes what follows. It's a tiny habit with outsized benefits: less fog, clearer choices, and fewer emotions left to accumulate unnoticed. Pick one small action. Write a note, set a reminder, breathe it out, or choose to let it go for now. After noticing and naming an emotion, choose one small action. This step prevents feelings from hovering unresolved. The action should be practical, immediate, and low effort, enough to acknowledge the emotion without turning it into a major task. Examples: jot a quick sentence in a notes app, set a 5-minute reminder to revisit a concern, take 3 intentional breaths to release tension, or decide aloud to let the feeling rest until a better time. These options respect your capacity in the moment. If the emotion requires more time, scheduling a specific slot keeps it from lingering as an ambiguous, "I'll deal with it later." If it truly needs no follow-up, consciously choosing to let it go is a valid action. The key is clarity, deciding what comes next. Small actions add up. Each clear choice reduces the pileup of unfinished emotional items and teaches your mind that emotions have paths forward, not just loops of thought. Make it automatic. Attach the check-in to an existing routine, like after brushing teeth or during your morning coffee. Automation is the bridge between intention and habit. By linking a 1 to 5 minute check-in to something you already do, the new practice becomes easier to repeat. This is called habit stacking. Pair your emotional pause with an established cue. Pick reliable anchors after you brush your teeth, when you sit down for morning coffee, or immediately after lunch. Use that moment as a signal to take 3 breaths, notice one feeling, and choose one small action. The cue reduces decision fatigue and makes the check-in feel natural. Keep the check-in lightweight so it doesn't become another obligation. If mornings are hectic, attach it to an evening routine instead. If you miss a cue, be gentle. Simply use the next available anchor rather than abandoning the practice. With repetition, the check-in moves from deliberate effort to automatic rhythm. Over weeks, this tiny consistency prevents emotional clutter from building and supports steadier emotional clarity. 6.2 Weekly Emotional Review. A slightly longer look back to spot trends and plan one practical change for the week ahead. Simple template. List 3 emotional highs, 3 drains, and 1 small change to try next week. Use a short, repeatable template to make weekly reviews quick and focused. Start by listing 3 emotional highs from the week, moments that uplifted you, gave energy, or felt meaningful. Then note 3 drains, situations or interactions that left you tired, irritated, or flat. Keeping the list to 3 items each makes the task manageable and highlights patterns without getting bogged down. Be specific. Name the event, the feeling that followed, and any small detail that stands out. That clarity helps you spot recurring themes across weeks. Finish by choosing one small change to try next week. Make it concrete and achievable. A 10-minute quiet break, shifting a meeting, or turning off notifications after dinner. After 2 or 3 reviews, compare lists to see which drains repeat. That pattern gives a clear target for boundary setting or habit shifts. Clear, quick tasks. If a thought or task takes under 5 minutes, do it. Otherwise, schedule time to handle it. Treat small, actionable items as instant clears during your weekly review. If a thought or task takes under 5 minutes, reply to a short message, delete an old email, jot a reminder, do it right away. Removing tiny unfinished items prevents them from stacking into mental clutter. For tasks that need more time, put them on your calendar with a specific block. Label the block with a simple outcome so it's clear what work means. Scheduling time reduces the temptation to keep items hovering in your mind as vague obligations. When you decide to defer, include a brief note about next steps, where the work will happen, and what the first action is. This short plan protects your attention and keeps the weekly review from turning into a to-do list that never finishes. Over weeks, this habit frees cognitive space and makes emotional reset sessions feel lighter, not heavier. Look for patterns. Repeating drains point to habits or boundaries that need attention rather than one-off events. Spotting repeated drains is the main benefit of a weekly review. One bad meeting or a single tense moment is normal, but when the same type of situation keeps appearing, frequent interruptions, conversations that leave you depleted, your evening spent catching up, you're likely facing a pattern. Patterns usually signal modifiable causes, habits you've fallen into, or boundaries that are too loose. Use your review notes to ask simple questions. When does this drain show up? Who is involved? What attitude or expectation was present? These quick probes point you toward targeted changes that reduce repeat stress. Address patterns with small experiments. Shift meeting times, set a daily do not disturb window, or practice a short script for difficult conversations. Testing one change for a week reveals whether the pattern shifts. Over time, pattern awareness helps you prevent buildup before it becomes heavy emotional clutter. Choose one tweak. Make a single, manageable adjustment. Shorter meetings, an earlier bedtime, or a tough conversation. Picking one small tweak each week keeps change doable and reduces decision fatigue. Instead of chasing many improvements, choose a single, specific adjustment that directly addresses a drain you noted. The narrower the tweak, the easier it is to test and learn from. Examples include shortening recurring meetings by 15 minutes, moving your phone-free evening earlier, or scripting the opening line for a difficult conversation. Make the tweak measurable and time-bound. Try it for 1 week and notice immediate effects on your energy and stress levels. Jot one line about the outcome in your review so you can compare next week. If the tweak helps, keep or slightly expand it. If it doesn't, treat it as data rather than failure. Adjust and try again with a different small change. Over months, a steady series of tiny successful tweaks compounds into meaningful relief from emotional clutter without overwhelming your schedule. 6.3. Adjusting your habits. Small habit changes add up. Start tiny so you actually keep them. Limit notifications. Turn off or batch alerts for part of the day to reduce reactivity and mental noise. Notifications are tiny interruptions that repeatedly pull your attention into other people's priorities. Each ping can spark a burst of stress or reactivity, and over a day, those bursts add up into emotional clutter. Turning off non-essential alerts for focused windows gives your mind space to settle. Try batching. Choose 2 or 3 times a day to check messages and social apps instead of reacting instantly. Use your phone's Do Not Disturb or Focus mode to mute everything except a short list of priority contacts. Start small. Silence group chats, social media, or promotional emails first, so the habit feels manageable. Notice how fewer interruptions affect your mood and decision-making. When you intentionally limit alerts, you reduce constant emotional churn. That quieter background makes it easier to notice what matters and prevents small disturbances from turning into lingering tension. Add a short separator. A 5-minute walk or stretch after work helps shift out of the day's emotions. A small physical ritual between the end of work and the rest of your life signals to your brain that one chapter is finished. Even 5 minutes of walking, stretching, or standing at a window can create a clear emotional transition. Choose an activity that's easy and repeatable. A short loop around the block, a few gentle stretches, or stepping outside for sunlight and breath. The key is consistency. Doing it the same way makes the separator effective. This brief pause loosens tension held in the body and gives your mind a moment to drop workplace worries. You don't need a long practice to notice relief. The tiny shift reduces carryover and lowers evening reactivity. Make it effortless. Put on shoes by the door, use a 5-minute timer, or pair the separator with a small reward like a favorite playlist. Over time, the habit becomes a reliable reset. Nightly one-line release. Write a single sentence about what's unresolved to clear your mind before sleep. Before bed, jot one straightforward sentence naming what's still on your mind. No analysis, no solutions. For example, I haven't replied to Sam's message, or I'm worried about the meeting tomorrow. The act of naming transfers the thought from an internal loop onto paper. Keep it brief and non-judgmental. The purpose is to acknowledge and offload, not to solve. If a follow-up task is needed, add a tiny next step or schedule it for the morning so the thought doesn't linger as an open-ended worry. Doing this nightly helps quiet rumination and signals your brain that the issue has been noticed and parked. Over time, the one-line release becomes a simple cue that allows sleep to arrive with less mental clutter. Test and tweak. Try each habit for 2 weeks, then adjust timing or size so it fits your life. New habits need trial and refinement. Commit to a 2-week experiment for a single tiny habit so you can see if it truly works for you. Short trials make change feel doable and provide useful feedback. Track adherence simply. Use a calendar check, a habit card, or a quick note. After 2 weeks review, did it stick? When did it fail? What felt awkward? Based on that, shrink, shift, or reschedule the habit rather than abandoning it entirely. Small tweaks. Moving a 5-minute walk earlier, shortening a practice, or pairing it with an existing routine often make the biggest difference in long-term consistency. Focus on steady practice over perfection. Iterating in small steps keeps habits helpful instead of becoming another source of pressure and helps your emotional space stay lighter over time. 6.4. Tools to support habit formation. Use simple tools that lower friction and keep habits from becoming another chore. Reminders and calendar blocks. Schedule check-ins and reviews like any other appointment so they actually happen. Reminders and calendar blocks turn intentions into actions. When you add a daily check-in or weekly review to your calendar, you treat it with the same priority as a meeting. Blocking time reduces the chance you'll skip it and signals to yourself that this maintenance matters. Use short, fixed slots, 1 to 5 minutes for daily check-ins and 15 to 30 minutes for weekly reviews. Set a reminder 5 to 10 minutes before to give yourself notice. If you prefer analog, write the slot on a paper planner where you'll see it. Name the event clearly, for example, emotional check-in, and set it to repeat. Treat missed sessions kindly. Reschedule once rather than abandoning the habit. Over time, these scheduled blocks prevent small, unresolved feelings from stacking, making emotional maintenance a steady, manageable practice. Habit stacking. Pair a new reset with an existing habit, for example, right after lunch or teeth brushing. Habit stacking links a new emotional reset to something you already do. By attaching a brief check-in to an established routine, for example, right after brushing your teeth or finishing lunch, you reduce friction and rely on an existing cue. This makes the new habit easier to remember. Choose a stable daily anchor and make the reset tiny. 1 minute of breathing, saying one sentence, or jotting a quick note. Keep the new action clearly defined so it doesn't become vague. Over weeks, the stacked habit becomes almost automatic since the original routine triggers the reset. If an anchor sometimes changes, like varying lunch times, pick a more consistent habit, such as morning coffee or bedtime. Track the pairing for 2 weeks and adjust. If it slips, try a different anchor or simplify the reset further. Small, consistent pairings add up to real emotional maintenance without extra effort. Physical cues, a habit card, sticky note, or small object can prompt your check-in without thinking. Physical cues work like gentle nudges in your environment. A small habit card on your desk, a sticky note on the bathroom mirror, or a pebble in your pocket can remind you to pause for a quick emotional reset. Because these cues sit in plain sight, they trigger memory without relying on willpower. Keep the cues simple and meaningful. Use a short phrase on a card, such as one breath or name one feeling, so the prompt is clear. Place the cue where your anchor habit happens. The proximity makes it easier to act. Rotate cues if they stop drawing attention. Fresh visuals re-engage your mind. Also, choose cues that fit your lifestyle, discrete objects for public spaces, brighter notes at home. Over time, these small physical reminders lower the barrier to regular check-ins and help emotional maintenance become part of your daily scenery. Low-pressure accountability. Tell one friend or partner your plan and do a weekly quick check-in for support. Low-pressure accountability brings gentle social support without performance anxiety. Tell one friend, partner, or colleague about your chosen daily check-in and weekly review, and agree to a short, informal check-in once a week. The goal is encouragement, not scrutiny. Keep the check-in brief. 2 minutes to say what worked and what felt heavy. Use a simple format. Did you do your daily mini checks, and what one small change would help? This light structure keeps the conversation focused and manageable. Choose someone who is steady and non-judgmental. If voice calls feel heavy, use a quick text or voice note. If you miss a session, skip shame and reschedule. Consistent, compassionate accountability increases follow-through and makes habit formation feel like shared care rather than extra work. Set boundaries around what you share. Keep the content focused on the habit and outcomes rather than deep personal disclosure, unless you choose to. This keeps accountability light and sustainable, so it supports your routines without becoming an emotional demand. 6.5. Long-term habit mindset. Think steady and patient. These habits are maintenance, not instant fixes. Consistency over perfection. Small, regular resets beat occasional grand efforts every time. Small, steady habits win because they keep emotional clutter from accumulating. A 1-minute daily check-in, repeated most days, does far more for clarity than an occasional 2-hour reset that never becomes routine. The aim is not to be flawless. It's to build a reliable rhythm that gently clears small moments before they grow. Think in terms of frequency and simplicity. Short actions, naming one feeling, breathing for 1 minute, or writing a single sentence add up. Over weeks, these tiny efforts reduce reactivity and make space for clearer thinking without draining your energy. Practical tips. Attach the habit to something you already do, use a friendly reminder, and allow flexibility. If you miss a day, return the next one without harshness. Consistency means steady return, not perfect streaks. This is how emotional maintenance becomes sustainable. Expect misses. Missed days are normal. Notice why and adjust without guilt. Missing a check-in or skipping a weekly review is part of the process, not a failure. Life happens. Busy days, fatigue, or emotional overwhelm all get in the way. Treat misses as data, not moral shortcomings. When a day slips, briefly note what prevented the habit. Was it time, energy, or emotional resistance? That simple observation helps you troubleshoot. Change the timing, shorten the practice, or pair it with something pleasant so it's easier to return to. Use compassion as your main tool. Respond with curiosity instead of criticism. A gentle adjustment, making the check-in 30 seconds instead of 5 minutes, or moving the weekly review to a more relaxed time, keeps the habit alive without creating extra pressure. Measure what matters. After 2 weeks, note changes in clarity, reactivity, or sleep rather than rigid checklists. 2 weeks is a practical window for noticing initial shifts. Rather than counting completed tasks, focus on qualitative changes that reflect emotional lightness. Do you feel clearer, less reactive, or sleeping more soundly? These outcomes tell you whether the habits are working. Use simple measures, a 1-sentence nightly note about how you felt, a quick 1 to 5 rating for reactivity during the day, or noting sleep quality. These small markers are easy to track and meaningful enough to guide adjustments. Let observations inform gentle tweaks. If clarity hasn't improved, simplify the practice or change its timing. Avoid rigid checklists that turn maintenance into another chore. Trust lived experience as the key indicator of progress. Grow slowly. Keep the 1 daily check-in and 1 weekly review from this chapter. Tweak them and let them become routine. Start with the 2 core habits and resist the urge to add many new practices at once. Stability comes from repetition, so let the daily check-in and weekly review settle into your life before introducing more elements. When you're ready to expand, do so incrementally. Tweak 1 habit at a time. Shorten it, change its cue, or pair it with an existing routine. After a month of consistency, you might add a tiny supportive habit like a 5-minute walk or a 1-sentence journal entry. Celebrate small wins and prioritize maintenance over expansion. Growing slowly prevents burnout and ensures each habit truly supports your emotional space instead of becoming another obligation. Thank you for listening to Chapter 6. We'll see you in Chapter 7. You're listening to Chapter 7 of Emotional Declutter, a practical guide to letting go of what weighs you down. Today we're covering Chapter 7, Maintaining Emotional Lightness. Introduction. The work of emotional decluttering is ongoing. This final chapter focuses on long-term maintenance, noticing patterns early, practicing consistent release, and supporting your emotional clarity with steady habits. The aim is a sustainable approach that keeps your inner world manageable and responsive, not overloaded. Monitoring emotional patterns. Maintaining lightness starts with regular observation. Patterns are easier to change when caught early. Continue the tracking practices from earlier chapters. Short notes, weekly reviews, and body checks. Look for recurring themes. Are certain people or situations repeatedly stressful? Does a particular time of day drain you? These patterns are your targets for preventive action. When you spot a pattern, don't react with blame. Use it as a data point. Ask, what small change would make this pattern less likely? The answer might be a boundary, a habit tweak, or a brief conversation. Small preventive steps reduce future buildup. Practicing consistent release. Consistency matters more than intensity. One long emotional session once in a while helps, but regular short releases are what prevent clutter from returning. Keep the daily check-ins, one-sentence write-ups, and short breathing practices as part of your routine. Make release part of existing rhythms, after a meeting, before bed, or at the end of the workday. Small, repeated acts of release become a habit that keeps your emotional space clear. Over time, you'll notice fewer surprises, less reactivity, and more ease in decision-making, supporting your emotional clarity. Beyond direct emotional work, lifestyle supports help maintain clarity. Sleep, movement, social support, and time in nature all make your nervous system more resilient. Good sleep reduces reactivity, movement clears built-up tension, and supportive relationships provide perspective that prevents small issues from growing into heavy ones. Another key support is ongoing boundaries. Revisit them regularly. As life changes, so do your limits and needs. Check in every few months. Which boundaries still serve you? Which need adjusting? Treat boundaries as living tools you can revise instead of fixed rules. Practical maintenance plan. Here's a simple maintenance plan to keep things light. Daily, 1-minute check-in and one small release practice. Weekly, 15-minute review to note drains and sources of support. Monthly, review recurring patterns and adjust one boundary or habit as needed. Quarterly, a longer reflection on major life areas, work, relationships, health, and a small reset if needed. Sticking to a plan like this prevents small things from turning into heavy burdens. It also builds confidence. You'll trust your ability to handle emotional moments without getting overloaded. When life gets heavy, even with good habits, intense periods will come: loss, change, or stress. When that happens, scale up support rather than abandon practices. Add a few extra check-ins, lean on trusted people, and consider professional help if feelings become overwhelming. The tools in this book still help. You may only need to use them more often or with more intentionality. Closing thoughts. Emotional decluttering isn't about perfection. It's about creating a way of living where feelings move through you instead of settling in. Small, steady habits, clear boundaries, and brief processing practices combine to keep your internal space open. Over time, you'll notice more calm, clearer thinking, and better energy for what matters. Final practice. Choose one maintenance habit from the plan above and commit to it for the next 30 days. At the end of the month, reflect on what changed. Celebrate progress, however small. Emotional lightness builds slowly, but it lasts when you protect it with simple, regular care. 7.1. Monitoring emotional patterns. Watch for recurring feelings, moments, or people that repeatedly drain you. These patterns are early warning signs you can act on. Keep a simple log. After a stressful moment, jot one line about what happened and how you felt. Over time, the entries reveal trends you can address. A one-line log is an easy, low-effort habit that uncovers repeating emotional themes. Right after a stressful moment, write a single sentence noting what happened, the main feeling, and any physical cue you noticed. This keeps the task brief while collecting useful data. Do it on your phone, a sticky note, or a small notebook. Use whatever you'll actually keep up with. Consistency matters more than length. The aim is spotting patterns, not crafting long entries. After a week or two, skim your lines and watch for repeats, similar situations, the same people, or times of day. Those repeats point to where small changes could make a big difference. Use the log to plan tiny actions like setting a short boundary, taking a 5-minute break, or shifting a task. Treat the log as friendly information that guides small, manageable steps rather than evidence of failure. Pay attention to your body. Tight jaw, shallow breath, fatigue, or headaches often flag emotional buildup before thoughts do. Physical signals often arrive before the mind names an emotion. A clenched jaw, shallow breathing, tension in the shoulders, or recurring headaches are practical clues that something is building inside you. Noticing these early is preventive work. Make brief body scans a regular habit. During a break, while waiting in line, or between meetings. Scan from head to toes and name one sensation you feel. That short check-in shifts attention from rumination to noticing. When you find tension, respond with a small, immediate action. A stretch, a few slow breaths, or a quick walk. These tiny interventions interrupt bodily holding and make it easier for emotions to move through. If a signal keeps returning, lengthen the pause or seek support. Connecting body cues with small responses trains you to catch buildup early and reduces the energy spent on unexplained low-level stress. Notice timing in people. If certain times of day or specific people trigger the same response, target those as priorities for change. Pay attention to when you feel drained. Mornings, post-lunch slumps, or late afternoons can become predictable pressure points. Noticing timing helps you schedule protective measures or rearrange tasks around vulnerable windows. Also track who tends to trigger the same reaction. Specific colleagues, family members, or social situations can repeatedly stir the same feelings. This is information, not a verdict. Use it to plan practical adjustments. Try small experiments. Move a meeting, shorten an interaction, or set a simple boundary like, I'll speak for 20 minutes. See whether shifting time or format reduces the emotional hit. Treat these as tests, not final decisions. When timing or people show up as consistent triggers, prioritize tiny changes that feel doable. Small adjustments often have a disproportionate effect on daily emotional weight and make long-term lightness more achievable. Turn patterns into questions. Ask what one small change would make this happen less. Treat patterns as data, not personal failure. When a pattern appears, respond with curiosity. Ask, what one small change would make this happen less? Framing the situation as a question moves you from blame toward practical next steps. Choose micro changes. Different wording, a brief pause, or a tiny schedule tweak. Small shifts are easier to test and more likely to stick than sweeping fixes. They also reduce resistance and judgment. Run the change as a short experiment. Try it for a week and observe whether the pattern softens. If it helps, keep it. If not, tweak and try again. Repetition and iteration are far more effective than perfection. Seeing patterns as neutral data lowers shame and increases agency. Over time, these small experiments accumulate into a steady strategy that prevents minor issues from becoming persistent emotional clutter. 7.2. Practicing. Consistent release. Small, regular releases beat occasional long sessions. Tiny, repeated acts stop buildup before it becomes heavy. Daily micro-practices. 1-minute check-ins, a single-sentence journal line, or a brief breath pause after events help feelings move on. Daily micro-practices are tiny, reliable actions that stop feelings from settling. A 1-minute check-in, a single-sentence journal line, or a brief breath pause after an event provides a small outlet for emotions. These actions don't take time away. They prevent longer, heavier conversations with yourself later. Start by naming one feeling during a check-in: tired, annoyed, relieved. Then let it be. A 1-sentence journal line like, I felt frustrated in the meeting, clarifies your mind and creates distance from the feeling. 3 slow breaths reset your nervous system enough to move emotion forward. Consistency matters more than depth. Doing a micro-practice several times a day reduces buildup and increases emotional clarity. Keep a note or a simple habit cue to remind you. Over weeks, these small acts build a calmer, more responsive inner life. If you forget, forgive yourself and restart. The point is persistence, not perfection. Anchor releases to routines. Link a short practice to existing moments after meetings, before bed, or during your commute, so it becomes automatic Anchor releases to routines by linking a short emotional practice to something you already do. After meetings, before bed, or during your commute are natural pockets of time where a quick pause fits easily. Choose a simple cue: closing your laptop, brushing your teeth, or pulling into your driveway. When the cue happens, take one breath, name how you feel, or write a single line. This pairing turns a conscious release into an automatic response. The trick is repetition. When a practice is reliably tied to an everyday action, it requires less willpower and becomes part of your rhythm. Start with one cue and one tiny action, then expand slowly. Be gentle if a cue doesn't stick. Try a different moment or a different micro-practice. Over time, these anchored releases reduce surprise reactions and make emotional upkeep feel effortless rather than another task on your list. Keep it simple. Naming an emotion, taking 3 deep breaths, or stepping outside for 2 minutes is enough when done consistently. Keep it simple. Short practices are effective when done consistently. Naming an emotion, taking 3 deep breaths, or stepping outside for 2 minutes gives your nervous system what it needs to shift. Simplicity reduces friction. You don't need a lengthy journal entry or a long meditation to clear a small emotional moment. A clear label, anger, sad, overwhelmed, creates distance and reduces rumination. Physical movement and sensory change also work. Standing up, stretching, or feeling fresh air changes your internal state and helps feelings pass. Combining a label with a single breath or movement is especially efficient. Make a short list of 3 go-to responses you can use anywhere. Practice them until they feel natural. Over weeks, these small, repeatable responses prevent accumulation and keep your attention available for what matters. Simple tools save energy and make emotional upkeep sustainable long-term. Scale gently during stress. Add a few extra check-ins or slightly longer reflection sessions rather than stopping your routine when life gets busy. Scale gently during stress by increasing frequency, not intensity. When life gets busy or painful, add a few extra check-ins or extend your short reflections by a few minutes. Avoid abandoning habits because you feel overwhelmed. That's exactly when small practices help most. Instead of one 1-minute pause, try 3 short pauses spread through the day or a 5-minute reflection in the evening. Keep the practices simple so they remain doable. If you have less energy, reduce the depth. Name the most dominant feeling and take 2 calming breaths. If you need more support, add a trusted friend or therapist to the routine. Remember, the aim is to maintain continuity. Scaling up temporarily protects your emotional space so the heavy period doesn't become permanent. When the moment passes, ease back into your regular micro-practices. Treat scaling as a short-term strategy, then gently return to your baseline routine. 3. Supporting your emotional clarity. Good daily habits make emotional work easier. Sleep, movement, nature, and supportive people all boost your ability to stay clear. Prioritize rest. Consistent sleep lowers reactivity, so small releases actually settle emotions instead of bouncing back quickly. Sleep is not optional for emotional clarity, it's a foundation. When you're well rested, your brain processes small emotional releases more effectively, which means a 1-minute check-in or a short breath practice actually helps feelings settle instead of resurfacing later. Aim for a regular sleep window and simple wind-down cues. Dim lights, a short no-screen period, and a consistent bedtime. Short naps, when used wisely, can also reduce irritability and restore focus. If sleep is inconsistent, prioritize small, controllable changes first. A 30-minute earlier bedtime or removing caffeine after mid-afternoon. Over time, these tweaks lower baseline reactivity, so every day, emotional decluttering feels easier and more durable. Move to shift energy. Short walks, stretching breaks, or quick movement sessions help clear tension and reset your mood. Movement is a straightforward way to shift stuck energy. You don't need long workouts. A 5 to 10-minute walk, a few simple stretches, or a brief movement break at your desk can interrupt rumination and return you to the present. Moving gives your body a chance to discharge tension that thoughts alone can't release. Pair movement with mindful breathing for extra effect. Notice how your shoulders soften or your thoughts slow down after a short burst of activity. Making these mini resets part of your day after a stressful call or before a transition helps prevent emotional buildup and refreshes your capacity to respond calmly. Lean on social support. Trusted friends or family give perspective and prevent small issues from growing into heavy burdens. Having someone you trust to talk to is a powerful emotional filter. A brief conversation with a friend or family member can offer perspective, normalize your feelings, and reduce the tendency to inflate small worries. Choose people who listen without judgment and who help you see options rather than magnify problems. Set simple goals for support: a weekly check-in, a 20-minute phone call, or a quick text to name how you're doing. It's okay to ask for what you need, whether that's advice, a listening ear, or a distraction. Social support doesn't have to solve everything. Often it's enough to make an emotion feel lighter and less alone. Revisit boundaries regularly. As circumstances change, update your limits so your emotional space stays protected and functional. Boundaries are living tools, not fixed rules. Check in with them periodically, monthly or quarterly, to see what's working and what isn't. Life changes, new jobs, relationships, or responsibilities can shift what drains you, so small adjustments keep your limits realistic and effective. Practically, try one boundary tweak at a time. Limit meeting hours, shorten social commitments, or set clearer phone habits. Communicate changes kindly and test them for a few weeks. If a boundary feels too strict or too soft, adapt it. Regularly revising limits preserves your emotional space and makes daily decluttering much easier. 7.4 Practical Maintenance Plan. A simple plan keeps you steady. Use daily, weekly, monthly, and quarterly steps to stop slow buildup before it becomes overwhelming. Daily, 1-minute check-in plus one short release practice. This prevents feelings from stacking up across the day. Start small. 1 minute is all it takes. Pause and name one feeling. Notice where it sits in your body and take 2 slow breaths. This brief moment gives your mind permission to notice rather than push feelings aside. Pair the check-in with a single short release practice. That could be writing one sentence in a notes app, doing 3 grounding breaths, stretching for 30 seconds, or stepping outside for a minute. The aim is movement. Emotional energy shifts when you give it a tiny outlet. Make it automatic by anchoring the check-in to something you already do, like after lunch or when you finish a meeting. Consistency beats intensity. Tiny, frequent releases keep small tensions from becoming heavy burdens. Weekly, a 15-minute review to note what drained or supported you and choose one small adjustment for the coming week. Reserve a predictable 15-minute slot each week for a quick emotional audit. Use 2 columns: what drained me, what supported me. Be concrete. Name people, tasks, times of day, or habits. After noting patterns, pick one small, actionable adjustment to try in the next week. It might be shortening a meeting, declining one request, scheduling a short walk, or shifting when you check emails. Treat this as an experiment. Observe the effect without judgment. Small weekly tweaks compound over time and create momentum. The goal is steady course correction so emotional clutter doesn't stealthily rebuild between reviews. Monthly and quarterly, tweak boundaries or habits monthly. Do a deeper quarterly reset covering work, relationships, and health. Each month, review one boundary or habit and make a specific, doable tweak. For example, reduce evening screen time by 15 minutes, say no to one extra task, or set a clearer work cutoff. Try the change for the month and note differences. Quarterly, schedule a longer reset, 30 to 90 minutes, to look across major life areas: work, relationships, and health. Ask what's draining you and what feels energizing. Decide on 2 or 3 larger shifts to test over the next quarter. This rhythm balances minor course corrections with occasional strategic changes. Monthly tweaks keep everyday life manageable. Quarterly resets allow you to adapt as seasons and priorities change without becoming overwhelmed. When things get heavy, increase check-ins, lean on trusted people, and consider professional help if feelings feel overwhelming. Intense periods call for stepped-up care. Double or triple your check-ins, add short calming practices, and give yourself permission to rest more. Small increases in routine help stabilize you when pressure rises. Reach out to trusted friends, family, or colleagues. Saying simply, "I'm having a hard week," lets others offer practical or emotional support and prevents isolation. If needed, ask someone to help with specific tasks so you have space to breathe. If emotions become persistent, impair daily functioning, or cause significant distress, consider professional support. A therapist or counselor can offer tools and perspective to navigate heavier experiences. Asking for help is a strength, not a setback. That concludes Chapter 7.
You've reached the end of this listening. If this audiobook resonated with you, you're welcome to subscribe to Vina Audio for more spoken books and thoughtful readings across ideas, life, work, and reflection. You can also explore other audiobooks available on this channel, each shared calmly and without urgency, and meant to be returned to whenever you need space to think. Thank you for spending this time here. Listen slowly, take what stays, leave what doesn't.